Welcome back to the channel, y'all. Today we're going to break down and go over the unique features of each of the Paladin subclasses to determine which of the subclasses is the best and which is the worst. And then at the very end of the video, we're going to throw them onto a tier list, which will eventually expand to cover all the subclasses in Baldur's Gate 3. Now, before we begin, let's go over a disclaimer. First and foremost, every subclass that I'm going to talk about in this video, just know it's perfectly viable in Tactician and Honor mode, and that goes for future subclasses that I cover as well. So even if I say a subclass is weak or shit, I just wouldn't take it too personally. And that's because difficulty in Baldur's Gate 3 is mostly a knowledge check. And the point of these videos in this channel in general is just to talk about video games like we're at a pub, bar, or winery. We do like wine around here. Anyways, let's get started with the video. Actually, wait, one last thing. We are not going to be factoring in multiclassing when it comes to this series. So now let's begin with the video. Okay, the first Paladin subclass we're going to talk about is Oath of Devotion. Now, Paladins get their unique features at level 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. So those are the levels we're going to cover, and those subclass features are going to be what we use as a measuring stick to decide, okay, which Paladin subclass is the best and which Paladin subclass is the worst. So again, starting off with Oath of Devotion here, your first subclass feature is Holy Rebuke. This action will cost you 1 action point and 1 channel oath charge. And what this skill allows you to do is put an aura on an ally that when they are attacked with a melee strike, they will deal a 1d4 radiant damage to their attacker. And this lasts for 2 turns. So unfortunately, I do think Holy Rebuke here as a subclass skill is not very good. And I think that comes down to the fact that it only lasts for 2 turns, and then that your ally has to be attacked with a melee strike. So there's no guarantee that the person who has Holy Rebuke on them will even be targeted. And next up, at level 3, Oath of Devotion earns Sacred Weapon and Turn the Unholy. Both of these skills cost an action and a channel oath charge. And for Sacred Weapon here, this will add your Charisma modifier to your attack rolls. It'll also make your weapon magical and emit light. And then this skill has a duration of 10 turns. I actually think Sacred Weapon here is pretty good and definitely better than Holy Rebuke. And then they also earn Turn the Unholy. So this will basically turn away all undead and fiends, and they'll basically have to flee and run away from you. This can be handy, but as a paladin, I want to be in melee range. I want the enemies actually coming towards me so I can hit them with something like Divine Smite. In addition to our channel oath abilities that we just earned, we also get some oath spells. We gain protection from evil and good, and we earn Sanctuary. Now, protection from evil and good, the other paladins, you already have access to this anyways. You just get it guaranteed here on Oath of Devotion. That Sanctuary, on the other hand, is unique to Oath of Devotion. So I think Sanctuary here is an amazing spell and a really good bonus to being a Devotion paladin. And at level 5 for Devotion, we're going to pick up Silence, which I actually like a lot. I think it's a really useful spell. And then we also pick up Lesser Restoration, but every other paladin has access to this spell already, so not a huge boon here for Devotion. Now, at level 7, Devotion Paladin earns Aura of Devotion, and this basically states that you or your nearby allies can't be charmed. I can't say that I've ever found this aura to be all that useful, and that's because I don't think the charmed effect is all that prevalent in Baldur's Gate 3, where I'm like, ooh, I want Aura Devotion all the time for this encounter. I don't really ever run into that situation. And at level 9, Devotion Paladin picks up Beacon of Hope, which is unique to Devotion Paladin. The other paladins don't have access to this. And this is a concentration spell that will maximize the hit points when your allies are healed if they are in the 9-meter radius. And they will also have advantage on Wisdom saving throws and Death saving throws. That advantage on Wisdom saving throws is actually pretty handy. But then we also pick up Remove Curse as another spell, but again, every other paladin gets access to this with their prepared spell list. So overall with Devotion Paladin here, if I'm giving it a tier ranking, I would throw it somewhere in a B tier, a very solid tier. And that mostly comes down to just the base Paladin kit that every Paladin has access to, and that's because of Divine Smites and their raw single target damage that they can deal out. Some of their oath charges are useful, and you're going to see when we compare Devotion Paladins to the other Paladins and what they get. Yeah, Devotion here, it's a little bit on the weaker side. And next up, we're going to talk about Oath of the Ancients Paladin. And the first subclass action they pick up is Healing Radiance. And this skill will heal yourself and nearby allies as a bonus action and your oath charge. But then on your next turn, it'll heal you again. So this is actually a really nice support skill, kind of putting you in that healer role. And I think another great thing about this skill is that it's a bonus action, so it's not impeding your ability to do melee strikes. And you're going to see later on in the video with the other other subclass, I value that a lot as far as having a supportive bonus action and then being able to use my melee strikes for divine smites. And then next up for Ancients, they unlock the 2 Oath abilities, Nature's Wrath and Turn the Faithless. Nature's Wrath will restrain an enemy where they're not going to be able to move, and then attack rolls against them will have advantage. While at the same time, their attack rolls and dexterity saving throws will have disadvantage. And this lasts for 10 turns. Now this is pretty decent, but you're going to see later on Vengeance Paladin just has something that's way better than this. And Turn the Faithless here, kind of like Turn the Unholy, but instead you're going to be turning away Fae and Fiends. And this can be useful, but like I said, with Devotion, I'd rather enemies could be coming towards me instead. Now we also unlock 2 spells that are unique to Ancients Paladin, and that is Speak with Animals and Ensnaring Strike. Speak with Animals can be nice because it's a ritual spell, and it'll give you like a lot of RP dialogue.
Get out!
The squirrel lunges at your foot and bites it.
And then Ensnaring Strike here, this can be good, but this is also a really big investment because it's an action, a bonus action, and a spell, and a concentration. So just be aware that this is a big investment spell, and I don't necessarily think it's worth the amount of resources it takes to cast. Now at level 5, Oath of the Ancients picks up Misty Step and Moonbeam. Misty Step kind of solves one of the issues with Paladin, and that's their mobility. Vengeance Paladin is the only Paladin subclass that also gets Misty Step, so big plus there. Now Moonbeam on the other hand, this is a good range spell, especially if you want your Paladin maybe to transition into more of a caster role for some fights instead of just being in melee range, so a little bit of versatility here. And at level 7 for Ancients, you pick up Aura of Warding, and this in my opinion is the best Paladin aura in the game because you and nearby allies, you will have spell damage against you. Hopefully I don't have to explain why this is an amazing support feature, and there's absolutely no upkeep with it, you just cast it and it lasts between long rests as long as you remain conscious. And lastly, at level 9 for Ancients, you will pick up Protection from Energy. This is not really that great considering we already pick up Aura of Warding here, and then we also pick up Plant Growth. This I don't really use that often, but you know, it does look nice. So overall for Ancients here, because they have a really good Oath charge with Healing Radiance, their aura is like the best in the game, and then they have a lot of mobility with Misty Step, I gotta give them the A tier ranking. Let's move on to Vengeance Paladin. Vengeance Paladin, my favorite Paladin. We all know how this is going to go, but we're going to do it anyways. At level 1 Vengeance Paladin, we pick up Inquisitor's Might, which will grant us radiant damage based on our Charisma modifier. So in this example here, I have 16 Charisma, so I'm getting 3 radiant damage. This is going to last for 2 turns, and this also can daze enemies. Now what I like about this Oath charge is that it's a bonus action. So we can cast this on ourselves and then just get to swing it. Now, at level 3 for Vengeance, they pick up a lot of great skills. We get Vow of Enmity, and we also get Abjure Enemy. And for our spells, we pick up Hunter's Mark and Bane. I like using Hunter's Mark here. This is a great concentration ability. We get a little bit more damage, and as long as we maintain that concentration, we can recast this every time we defeat a target. But back to our Oath charges here. Vow of Enmity, this is going to give us advantage on attack rolls. Now, this is great because it is bugged in Baldur's Gate 3, because we can cast this on ourselves. So every melee strike we take will have advantage for 10 turns. And honestly, this Oath charge here is just great throughout the game. But you know, Abjure Enemy is also not bad. You will frighten the enemy and they'll have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls, and also they can't move. In addition to that, Fiends and Undead will have disadvantage on their saving throws. Now, disadvantage on ability checks, not all that useful in combat encounters, but the disadvantage on saving throws for Fiends and Undead, that can be really helpful. And a cherry on top with this Oath charge is, even if they save their roll, they will be slowed instead, and that's all for 3 turns. It's a good Oath charge, but not as good as Vow of Enmity in my opinion. At level 5 Vengeance Paladin, we pick up Misty Step. Just like Ancients, this is a great mobility option. And we also pick up Hold Person. This is a great setup for critical strikes for you and your allies, and it's a great concentration spell alongside Hunter's Mark. And pair Vengeance Paladin with something like Band of the Mystic Scoundrel, and this Hold Person Divine Smite combo, oof. Well, hang on there, Mr. Nomad. You said you were going to bring up multiclassing, but you're going to talk about items and equipment? And you're right. We're not going to talk about item combinations, just like we're not going to talk about multi-class combinations. So let's just get back to the video. At level 7 for Vengeance, we pick up Relentless Avenger. When we do an opportunity strike, we're going to get extra movement speed, 4.5 meters. So this is nice mobility if you don't want to spend a spell slot on Misty Step and this procs. And finally, at level 9 for Vengeance, we pick up Protection of Energy. This is not a great concentration compared to the other two options we have. In addition to that, we also pick up Haste as a spell. And this is the ultimate concentration ability in my opinion, especially for a damage dealer like Vengeance Paladin, so hail to the king, baby. So overall, with Vengeance Paladin here, because it gets such great oath abilities like Inquisitor's Might and Vow of Enmity, on top of the great spells it gets like Misty Step, Hold Person, Hunter's Mark, and of course Haste here, Oath of Vengeance here has to be S tier. Let's move on to the latest Paladin subclass that has been added to the game, and that is Oath of the Crown. At level 1, they pick up Righteous Clarity, which you can target yourself or an ally, and that's going to give you your proficiency bonus added to your attack rolls for 10 turns. This is a bonus action and has a range of 18 meters. This is a nice way. This is going to get better as the game goes on, so a solid Oath charge overall. At level 3 Crown, we pick up Champion Challenge and Turn the Tide. These are going to be our Oath charges. Spell-wise, we pick up Compel Duel and Command. These are both good, but every other Paladin gets access to these. But back to our Oath charges here, Champion Challenge is going to be an AoE taunt. This is kind of a death sentence in the early game, but later on this can be a really nice feature to be more so a tank. I actually find myself using Turn the Tide a little bit more. This is a big AoE heal, and it's a bonus action. So at level 3 here as Crown Paladin, we're getting a nice split of being able to buff allies, heal, or even taunt, really filling out that tank fantasy. At level 5 Crown Paladin, we're going to pick up Warding Bond, which is going to make you basically a bodyguard for one of your allies. And we also pick up Spiritual Weapon, which is going to add basically more offensive capabilities to you. The spiritual weapons honestly aren't all that great, but they try really hard. And then at level 7 Crown Paladin, we're going to pick up Divine Allegiance. When an ally is hit, we can use a reaction and basically heal them while taking radiant damage to ourselves. Now this radiant damage that we receive can actually be reduced by resistance. Again, another subclass feature that's filling out our tank fantasy. Now to round off Crown Paladin, we pick up Spirit Guardians, and we're supposed to be picking up Crusader's Mantle, but instead we get Warden of Vitality. But it's not a big deal because Crusader's Mantle, it's already in our prepared spell list, but just know you're going to be picking up Warden of Vitality instead. And the real star of the show between these two is Spirit Guardians. This is one of the best concentration abilities in the game, and I'm so glad Paladins get access to it. And that's because Paladins lack a little bit of AoE damage, so having Spirit Guardians here, on top of being able to Divine Smite, oof, it's a match made in heaven. So overall, when it comes to Crown Paladin, because I think they are the best tank in the game, this is going to be another easy A tier. And last, and certainly not least when it comes to the Paladin subclasses, we have the Oathbreaker, or as I like to call him, the black sheep of the Paladin family. I thought I had a better joke here, but I don't. At level 1 for Oathbreaker, they pick up Spiteful Suffering. Now this will do necrotic damage to him each turn, but that's not really the important thing about this Oath charge. It's actually that the attack rolls against this target have advantage. That includes you and your allies for 3 turns. Next up at level 3, we pick up Control Undead, Dreadful Aspect. Spell-wise, we get the Hellish Rebuke as a reaction, and we get Inflict Wounds. Inflict Wounds, not all that great once we hit level 5, but a great spell before that. This is a really solid level for Oathbreakers. I really like Dreadful Aspect, and then having that Hellish Rebuke reaction ability is really strong. Control Undead can be useful if you want to lean into being like a Necromancer type of Paladin. Later on, we are going to get more features that are going to help out with that playstyle. At level 5, Oathbreaker picks up Crown of Madness and Darkness. These are okay concentrations, not my favorite though. And at level 7, we get Aura of Hate, which is going to add our Charisma modifier to our attack damage. Now unfortunately, this will only affect us and nearby allied undead, so we're not really being a team player when it comes to our living party members. And finally, at level 9, we get Animate Dead. This is what I was talking about earlier, where you can use Control Dead and then use Animate Dead, and you're kind of like this Necromancer Paladin. Now, we also pick up Bestow Curse. I love this concentration. I don't think enough people talk about it, but this is usually my go-to concentration ability when it comes to being an Oathbreaker. So when it comes to Oathbreaker here, it's a really strong offensive subclass with some necromancy mixed in there, but I think Vengeance Paladin kind of edges it out as far as strength, so I can't put it on the same level as Vengeance, and that means it's going to sit in A tier. Alright y'all, that's the video. Thank you very much if you've made it this far. You'll notice in that tier list there that maybe A tier is going to get pretty crowded as we continue to add other like subclasses into the mix. So I think A tier probably will be mixed up or divided into like A-, A tier, and A+ tier, and Devotion Paladin might see a bump from B tier to A- instead. But we're going to see how this video does and make changes on feedback. And then eventually, once we do every class and subclass, we will make like a supercut that will probably be like over an hour long. So that'll be fun. Anyways, I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace and take care. Welcome back, y'all. Today we're going to continue our Versus series. We already started off with the Paladin, so if you haven't seen that one yet, go ahead and go check that one out. But how this is going to work is we're going to take a class and then we basically go through all the subclasses and break down what makes them unique and then put them into a tier list so we can figure out which is the best one and which is the worst one. For this video, we're going to continue with the Cleric. Now, the Cleric has 8 subclasses, and I want to see a raise of hands. How many of you have played with Knowledge Domain? That's what I thought. So let's go ahead and get started with Knowledge Domain. Now, before we begin with knowledge here, these are the cleric levels we're going to look at. And the levels that are not listed, all of the clerics are going to have access to the same things. So it's either going to be like a boon or a negative against a subclass. Starting off with knowledge domain here, we pick up Blessing of Knowledge at level 1. And this will allow us to basically double up our proficiency with either Arcana, History, Nature, or Religion. And we also pick up the domain spell Command, which is really good, but every cleric has Command available to them. And then we also get Sleep as well. Heading in game, and at level 2, we pick up our Channel Divinity skill. For knowledge here, it's Knowledge of the Ages. So we gain proficiency in all skills of a chosen ability. You can see them all laid out here. The best two are probably Wisdom and Dexterity, and that's because these skill checks are very common in Baldur's Gate 3. And this is a nice divinity skill. I wouldn't call it bad, but its usefulness is really going to depend on the player. And for me, I'm not really ever going to gravitate towards this because I'm already setting up my characters to be proficient in certain areas already. And using this Channel Divinity charge, just not my cup of tea. At level 3, we get the domain spells Hold Person and Calm Emotions. Hold Person is an amazing control ability, and Calm Emotions can be good in situations like against the Harpies in the Druid's Grove. But again, all the clerics have access to these 2 spells at level 3, so not necessarily something to write home about with Knowledge Domain. At level 5, Knowledge Domain picks up Speak with Dead, but every cleric has this available to them. We do get Slow. Now, this is unique to Knowledge Domain, and this is a pretty good concentration. You're going to start to notice a trend that Knowledge Domain here is going to have a lot of concentrations that they pick up. Now at level 6 we pick up Speak with Animals, but this is a unique one because this will use our Channel Divinity charge and it lasts until long rest. I wouldn't use this ever. And I guess the better option would be to read thoughts, but this is only going to help you out in conversations. It's a concentration and it's your Channel Divinity, so not that great.
Thank you for making Mistress go away. She was horrid.
At level 7 we pick up Confusion and Odalic's Resilient Sphere. Now Confusion, this is one of the best control abilities in the game. And Odalic's Resilient Sphere here, it's okay, but we also have Sanctuary at home, which is kind of better because it's a level 1 spell and it also isn't a concentration. At level 8, we pick up Potent Spellcasting, which is going to add our Wisdom modifier to our Cleric cantrips. And only Knowledge Domain and Light Domain get this feature for Cleric. And finally, at level 9, we pick up Dominate Person and Telekinesis. My favorite out of these 2 is Telekinesis. I think this is a really fun concentration ability just to throw people around. Now when ranking Knowledge Domain Cleric here, not taking into account multiclassing or any gear or equipment that you get in the game, I think I have to put it into B tier because it has a lot of good concentration abilities as far as crowd control. Obviously its Channel Divinity ability leaves a lot to be desired, but the B tier for me means that it's a solid subclass. And this one kind of surprised me. I thought I was actually going to be throwing into something like F tier or something like that, but here we are. Next up is Death Domain Cleric, and at level 1 they are proficient with every martial weapon. We also pick up the subclass feature Reaper, which states that all of our necromancy cantrips can target an additional target. And yes, you'll notice in the background we're having a little bit of a cleric party. We have this group, and for whatever reason they don't like each other. Anywho, moving on. Actually, not moving on, we have the prepared spell Ray of Sickness that Death Domain picks up, and they also pick up False Life. I really like False Life, at least until you get Aid, but now we can move on to level 2. At level 2, we pick up the Channel Divinity Touch of Death. This is going to add necrotic damage to either our melee attack or a melee spell, and this adds a nice chunk of damage to our offensive capability. At level 3 we get Ray of Enfeeblement and Blindness. Both of these are okay, not my favorite spells, but they can be useful early on against somebody like Jor Ragzlin. Mostly useful against, I would say, martial enemies, especially in the case of Ray of Enfeeblement there. At level 5, the Death Domain Cleric gets Animate Dead, which admittedly every Cleric subclass gets this spell, but they also pick up Vampiric Touch. Now this can be really good if you build into it with equipment, but otherwise you're probably not going to bother with this spell. And that's mainly because we have something like Spirit Guardians. At level 6 we pick up the subclass feature Inescapable Destruction. If a target is resistant to necrotic damage, we will ignore it, which is pretty good because a lot of enemies in Baldur's Gate 3 are resistant to necrotic damage. At level 8, we pick up Divine Strike Necrotic, which is going to add necrotic damage to our melee strikes. And then at level 9, we get the spell Cloud Kill and Contagion. Both of these are really strong. Cloud Kill more so in AoE, and Contagion really works if you're going to be patient, usually on a beefy, like tanky target. So overall, when it comes to ranking the Death Domain Cleric, I have to give it the A rank. I think it's really strong in the early game with the subclass feature Reaper, being able to target 2 enemies with your Necromancy cantrips. Really good. And then from there it gets really strong as a melee fighter while getting some really powerful spells like Cloud Kill. And next up we have Life Domain Cleric. At level 1 you are heavy armor proficient, so a little bit more variety when it comes to your armor and gear choices. We also pick up Disciple of Life, so our healing spells will heal for even more. Our domain spells we pick up are Cure Wounds and Bless Here. These are both really good, but honestly every other cleric gets these, so not a big boon there. At level 2 we pick up our Channel Divinity, and that is Preserve Life, and this is a good AoE heal. You're going to start to notice a trend with Life Domain Cleric here, and that is a lot of subclass healing features. And then moving on to level 3, we just pick up the domain spells Aid and Lesser Restoration. Every cleric gets these. Aid is probably my favorite out of these two just because it helps bolster your allies. At level 5 we get the domain spells Revivify and Beacon of Hope, and I think Beacon of Hope combined with Life Domain Cleric is really good because when you're healed, it'll max out the amount of hit points possible. And then in level 6 we pick up the subclass feature Blessed Healer, so when we heal somebody we'll also be healing our Life Domain Cleric at the same time. Now for level 7, 8, and 9 for our domain spells, we pick up Death Ward, we pick up Guardian of Faith, we pick up Mass Cure Wounds, and we pick up Greater Restoration. Unfortunately for Life Domain Cleric, every other cleric gets these spells. Now jumping back to level 8 real quick, we do get Divine Strike Radiant, so our melee strike is going to have radiant damage added to it. So overall with Life Domain Cleric, a lot of subclass features that just center around healing, and unfortunately all the domain spells, all the other clerics have access to them. But I do have a soft spot for a dedicated healer in my party. So while I want to put it at like an A- tier, I just can't do that. I have to put it in a B tier, even though this is one of my personal favorite clerics. And I think that just mostly comes down to the nature of the subclass just being so centered around healing, which isn't a bad thing. It's just it doesn't have as much variety and choice as the other subclasses that we're going to get to. Up next, we have probably one of my favorite subclasses when it comes to the cleric, and that is the Light Domain. At level 1, we get Warding Flare, which is a great reaction ability that will impose disadvantage on attacks targeting the cleric. We also pick up the domain spells Light, Burning Hands, and Fairy Fire. Burning Hands is awesome, and Fairy Fire can be useful as well. At level 2, we get our Channel Divinity, Radiance of Dawn. This is a giant AoE nuke of radiant damage. This is amazing against undead. And at level 3, our domain spells we pick up are Flaming Sphere and Scorching Ray. Scorching Ray is really good. Flaming Sphere I don't often use that much, but again, Scorching Ray here, this is a really powerful spell that only Light Domain clerics get. Moving on to level 5 for Light Domain, we pick up Fireball. Fireball. Need I say any more? And I guess also we pick up Daylight, but nobody gives a crap about Daylight. Fireball. And at level 6, our Warding Flare gets improved to Improved Warding Flare, which now that disadvantage we put on an attack roll, we can now use it as a reaction towards our allies as well. Level 7, we pick up the domain spell Guardian of Faith, not a big deal there, and we also pick up Firewall, or I guess Wall of Fire. This can be a really fun spell, but I always wanted to do more. I don't know, you guys can let me know how you feel about Wall of Fire. And at level 8, we pick up the passive Potent Spellcaster, so our Wisdom modifier will be added to our cantrip damage. And lastly, for level 9, we pick up Destructive Wave, and we also pick up Flame Strike. Flame Strike is okay, but again, we have Fireball. Now, Destructive Wave, on the other hand, this is a really fun spell. Now, when it comes to ranking Light Domain Cleric here, I don't think it will be a surprise to anybody, just if you can tell the enthusiasm in my voice when talking about this subclass. This is an easy S tier. And this comes down to the fact that they get a lot of powerful spells like Fireball, Destructive Wave, on top of their Channel Divinity being a really good AoE spell, and then their reaction ability with Warding Flare is a great survivability tool. So pair this with the base Cleric spells, and yeah, it's just so easy. S tier, S tier, S tier, S tier. All right, so that is 4 of the Cleric subclasses down, and we have 4 more to go. What? Was I wearing this shirt before? Anywho, let's move on to Nature Domain now. At level 1 for Nature Domain Cleric, we are heavy armor proficient. We also get to pick up a Druid cantrip, and I really like Shillelagh here. On top of that, we get the domain spell Speak with Animals and then Animal Friendship. And at level 2, our Channel Divinity is Charm Animals and Plants. So if you're not picking up the vibe on Nature Domain here, it's basically Druid and Cleric meshed together. At level 5, we pick up the domain spells Spike Growth and Barkskin. Barkskin is an interesting choice because we are already heavy armor proficient, so this will only bump our armor up to 16. And it's a concentration, so not that great. At level 5, we pick up the domain spells Plant Growth and Sleet Storm. And these are, I would say, mediocre kind of control spells. Out of the two of them, I do think Sleet Storm's probably the better one just because it creates an ice floor. Now, what I do like about Nature Domain here is their reaction, Dampen Element. So if they're targeted with one of the elements, Acid, Cold, Fire, Lightning, or Thunder, they will have the damage. So that can be pretty good as a reaction ability. At level 7, we pick up Grasping Vine. This can be a fun addition to your party to have. And we also pick up Dominate Beast as a concentration spell. But at level 8, we pick up Divine Strike Elemental Fury. And I like this because we get to add one of the element types to our damage, whether it be melee or range. And to finish off Nature Domain here, as far as their domain spells, we get Insect Plague and we also get Wall of Stone. I don't see a lot of people use either one of these spells, and to be honest, I don't use them myself. Now, when it comes to ranking Nature Domain here, I think I have to put it into C tier. A lot of these spells, I would just much rather prefer them on Druid. So for me, them giving Cleric all these Druid spells on top of their Divinity not being that great, I just think this subclass is below average. And next up, our next Cleric domain is going to be Tempest Domain. Now, at level 1, you are heavy armor proficient as well as able to use martial weapons. We pick up Wrath of the Storm as a reaction ability, which has a saving throw associated with it, but even if the target succeeds their saving throw, they're still going to take half damage. And our first domain spells are Thunderwave and Fog Cloud. I really like Thunderwave as a push ability. At level 2, we pick up our Channel Divinity, which is Destructive Wrath. This is going to max out either our Thunder or our Lightning damage, and this can be really dangerous when you pair it with something like Create or Destroy Water, which will double up Lightning damage. So this is a very powerful Channel Divinity skill. Moving on to level 3, we pick up the domain spell Shatter, which I really like this one as well, and then Gust of Wind. Kind of okay, but I like using Thunderwave over Gust of Wind in most cases. Moving on to level 5, we pick up Sleet Storm and Call Lightning for our domain spells. I don't think I need to say too much about Call Lightning here, but it's one of the best spells in the game, especially if you want to save on your spell slots in combat, because as long as you maintain concentration with Call Lightning, you can just keep using it over and over again. Amazing spell, love Call Lightning. At level 6, we pick up the passive feature Thunderbolt Strike, so when we do lightning or thunder damage to a large or smaller target, we can push them up to 3 meters. This is okay, probably not something I would write home about. At level 7 for our domain spells, we pick up Freedom of Movement. I like this because it lasts until long rest, so decent spell there, but we also get Ice Storm, and this is a great AoE spell. It covers a large area and does a pretty good bit of damage, and the ice floor it leaves behind can be pretty funny. And at level 8 here, we get our Divine Strike for Thunder. This can be a melee or a range variant, just like all the rest. For our domain spells, at level 9, we pick up Insect Plague, and then we also get Destructive Wave. I really like Destructive Wave here, but overall with Tempest Domain here, it gets a lot of spells that the other subclasses don't get, and that makes Tempest Domain very powerful. So when it comes to ranking Tempest Domain here, I do think I split hairs about it when it comes to Tempest versus Light Domain. I love both of them, but just for right now and this list, I'm going to give it the A tier ranking. And then later down the road, depending on how the list is shaping up, this could be moved up to S tier, but overall an amazing A tier pick here. And next up on the list is a domain that is definitely not A tier, and yes, that is Trickery Domain. So first up with Trickery Domain here, we get the spells Charm Person and Disguise Self. This is okay. We also get the class action Blessing of the Trickster, so this is going to give advantage on stealth checks. And this isn't a spell, and it's a concentration, and it lasts until, well, while you're maintaining concentration. So This can be decent, and you can recast it a bunch of times if you like to play a stealth character, maybe pair this with a rogue. That could be decent, I guess. Moving along to level 2, we get our Channel Divinity Invoke Duplicity. So this creates an illusion, and if the enemy and your allies are within 3 meters of it, your allies and yourself will have advantage on attack rolls. This can be okay. The illusion you create is like immune to every type of damage, so that's unique and cool. We also pick up at level 3 the domain spell of Mirror Image and Pass Without Trace. Pass Without Trace is really good for something like a stealth archer. Now with Trickery Domain here, you might just start to notice a trend where a lot of these spells are very situational and they play towards a style that I really just don't gravitate towards. But anyways, let's move on to level 5. Now at level 5, we pick up the domain spells Fear and Bestow Curse. These are both pretty decent. And at level 6, we get another Channel Divinity skill, and that is Cloak of Shadow. So this will just basically make us invisible while we're obscured. Why we want to use our Channel Divinity to make ourselves invisible, I don't know. It's only for like 3 turns, 2 turns. It's not very good. Anywho, and quickly going through the rest of Trickery Domain, at level 7 we get Dimensional Door and Polymorph. Dimensional Door, this is a nice mobility option, but at level 8 we get our Divine Strike for poison damage. This is okay, there's a lot of enemies that are actually resistant to poison, so maybe not that useful. And then at level 9 we get Dominate Person, and then we get Seeming. And Seeming you can use for a bunch of like silly goose times, but for actual like use in combat and stuff, yeah, again, not that great. When it comes to Trickery Domain here, it's a bunch of decent spells paired with a playstyle that I don't gravitate towards. I'm going to put it in C tier, but just know if there's nothing in D tier, it's probably going to be Trickery Domain. Now last and certainly not least is War Domain here. And right off the bat, they are proficient with martial weapons and also can wear heavy armor. We do get the passive feature War Priest, and this grants us War Priest charges that allows us to use our bonus action to have an additional attack. We first start off with 3 of these charges and they come back on long rest. I kind of wish these came back on short rest, but oh well. For our domain spells, we get Divine Favor, and then we also get Shield of Faith, so those are pretty decent. And then at level 2, we get our Channel Divinity and we get Guided Strike. This is going to add a +10 to our attack roll, essentially guaranteeing that we hit our mark. And then at level 3, we get the domain spells Magic Weapon, and then we also pick up Spiritual Weapon, but Spiritual Weapon every cleric gets. Now moving on to level 5, we get another War Priest charge that would bring a total of 4 once you hit level 5. And our domain spells we get are Spirit Guardians, which every cleric gets Spirit Guardians. Fantastic spell, by the way. And then we also get Crusader's Mantle. This is really good as well. Both of them concentrations. Probably Spirit Guardians is always going to be the go-to for a concentration, especially for a more, I would say, offensive cleric. But let's move on to level 6. At level 6, we get the Channel Divinity War God's Blessing. This is essentially Guided Strike, but now we can give it to one of our allies if they're going to miss. Overall, I'd say this is a very mediocre Channel Divinity, especially when we compare it to the other subclasses. Moving right along to level 7, we pick up Stone Skin and Freedom of Movement. Honestly, these 2 spells probably don't see very much use. Stone Skin here, it's a concentration, so that's kind of the problem with that spell. Freedom of Movement, a little bit better, not a concentration, lasts until long rest, so pretty good there. Level 8, we pick up our 5th War Priest charge, and then we get the Divine Strike weapon. So this is basically just going to add a 1d8 to whatever weapon type we're using. Right now we have a mace, so that's bludgeoning damage. And then at level 9 for our last 2 domain spells, we get Flame Strike and we get Hold Monster. Hold Monster here is excellent in the late game against some bosses. Now, unlike all the other subclasses, War Priest gets an additional benefit at level 11. They get another War Priest charge, so this puts us at 6 total. So where do we rank War Domain? And I gotta say, this one's kind of tough because I think War Domain is kind of unique in the Cleric subclass section here. But just because it's unique, is it actually good though? And I think I'm gonna stick it in B tier. I think it's solid. If I was feeling generous, maybe I'd give it an A-, but I'm just not feeling that right now. I just think it sits in the B tier. Alright, so that is all the Cleric subclasses ranked. This is currently what the tier list looks like, including Paladin. And the overall goal with this tier list is to have sort of a bell-shaped curve, so it will ebb and flow depending on when more subclasses get added to it. I already mentioned earlier that, yeah, Trickery Domain, you're on the cusp of going into D tier. But just remember, even my least favorite subclass in Baldur's Gate 3, you can do a lot with it, and it can be powerful in its own right if you just build it correctly with equipment, or if you do a little bit of multiclassing. But again, this tier list, we're not considering multiclassing. But anyways, that's the video, y'all. If you'd made it this far, I appreciate the hell out of you, and I will see you next time. Peace and take care. Welcome back to the channel, y'all. Today we're covering the Barbarian in our Baldur's Gate 3 Versus series. Now the Barbarian has 4 subclasses, and these are the levels we're going to be looking at. We're going to go over each of the subclasses, and then we'll throw them into a tier list where we're going to rank them against all the other subclasses in the game. And first up, we're going to start off with the Berserker. Now when it comes to every Barbarian in Baldur's Gate 3, their subclasses are all going to alter their rage mechanic. And in the case of Berserker here, it gets changed into Frenzy. And with Frenzied, we're going to pick up Frenzied Strike and Enraged Throw. This is going to weaponize our bonus action. This makes Berserker, really early on in the game, a great damage dealer. And what's really nice about our Frenzied state here is the Enraged Throw will deal extra damage based off our strength, and it'll add the prone effect onto target. So you can actually bully a late game boss like Raphael with Enraged Throw here and really kill his movement speed. And then at level 6, we pick up the passive feature Mindless Rage. So while we're frenzied, we can't be charmed, frightened, or have calm emotions put on us. And this is just nice to keep us in that frenzied state. And at level 10, the last subclass feature we're going to pick up is Intimidating Presence. We can put fear on a target, and then we can reuse this to increase the duration of that fear effect. This can be okay, but we definitely want to focus more on doing damage as a Berserker. At least that's where we really shine because of how well we throw weapons in this game. And Baldur's Gate 3 has some really fantastic weapons that you can throw around. Now when it comes to ranking Berserker here, yeah, the subclass features they pick up, there's not that many of them, but intrinsically as a Barbarian, Berserker is just very strong at one thing, and that is throwing weapons. And so when putting it into a tier list and ranking it, keep in mind, we're not considering multiclassing or equipment that you pick up in Baldur's Gate 3, because we didn't do that for any of the other subclasses. I think I'm gonna have to stick this into the A tier. But don't get me wrong, if you consider multiclassing and equipment that you get in the game, the Berserker here would be like an SSS plus tier. The next up is Wild Magic Barbarian, and their rage skill gets replaced with Rage Wild Magic. And so what this will do is every time we enter that rage state, one of the random magical effects will go off. This is a lot of fun and for people who like just pure chaos. Additionally, we pick up the bonus action Magical Awareness, so anybody within range, we add their proficiency bonus to saving throws. This is a nice support ability. Moving on to level 6 for Wild Magic, we pick up these Bolster Magic abilities. Now we get one that allows us to recover a level 1 spell slot. So this is for you or an ally. Even though Barbarians here don't have any spell slots, this is more so for, I guess, multiclassing. But we also get a level 2 recovery. And then we get this boon one where we will receive a 1d4 bonus to our attack rolls and ability checks. Now this lasts for only 10 turns and you can use it once per long rest. And at level 9, we actually pick up Bolster Magic level 3, so we can recover a level 3 spell slot. These are okay, kind of nice support abilities, just a little odd to be on Barbarian. When I play Barbarian, I don't think about supporting my allies in their spells, but I'm not going to say it's bad, put it that way. And lastly, for Wild Magic, at level 10, we pick up a reaction, Unstable Backlash. So while raging, if we take damage or we fail a saving throw, we will trigger another Wild Magic effect. This is nice because Barbarians don't typically have reactions, and I am a fan of introducing more chaos, especially in co-op runs. So overall with Wild Magic Barbarian, I'm gonna have to stick it into B tier just because it's this weird like supportive Barbarian, and unless I'm making like a pure chaos like kind of party, it's just not something I'm gonna gravitate to, especially over the other Barbarians. Is it bad? No, I just think it's solid, maybe kind of like middle of the road. And next up is the latest Barbarian subclass, that is Giant Barbarian. Our rage gets turned into Giant's Rage, and this will increase our Barbarian size. And then the bonus damage we get from rage is doubled when we are doing a throwing attack. So is this going to be another throwing Barbarian, kind of like Berserker? Yeah, it is. But that's okay. We also pick up Vapric's Greed at level 3, which our carrying capacity is increased by 1/4. So this is a great subclass just to dump all your shit onto. Anywho, moving on. And then lastly, at level 3, we pick up the cantrip Thaumaturgy. This is nice, I guess, if you're going to have your Barbarian be the face of the party, but I don't know about you. I don't want a Barbarian to be the face of any party. No offense, Barbarians.
Oh, fine. I'll be here eating dirt or whatever.
At level 5 for Giant Barbarian, we pick up the class action Boot of the Giants. This is a bonus action that'll do damage and also pushes the target depending on our strength. So this is a nice way to weaponize our bonus action essentially. And for those of you that know me and how I like to use this ability, you know where I'm standing and you know what's about to happen. What do you say, my good man? One more time for old time's sake? And see ya! Man, that never gets old. And now finishing up Giant's Barbarian, at level 6 we pick up Elemental Cleaver, and this will do 3 things. 1, we get to pick an elemental type to put on our weapon, and this will also add the thrown property to whatever weapon we are wielding. And the thrown property just means that we can throw a weapon and it's going to do its maximum amount of damage. What Elemental Cleaver also does is when we throw a weapon, it'll come back to us. So Elemental Cleaver, in my opinion here, is fantastic. And then at level 10, we get Mighty Impel. So we can just throw creatures with our bonus action, usually they have to be smaller than us. But this is just another way to weaponize our bonus action, and you know, it's kind of funny just to toss guards around. So when it comes to ranking the Giant Barbarian, I have to throw it into A tier as well, similar to Berserker, but in my opinion, I actually like Giant a little bit better for that throwing build because intrinsically, Giant can throw any weapon, while Berserker has to rely on a weapon that has that return property with it. Both the subclasses are really good, obviously. I'm just splitting hairs and just telling you what my preference is. But anyways, let's move on to our last Barbarian subclass. So the last Barbarian subclass to talk about here is Wild Heart, and our rage gets changed into one of these animal hearts here. So if you've ever wanted to be like a Final Fantasy Dragoon, you would go something like Eagle Heart here, and you get this diving strike. So you get a lot of choices between levels on which one of these hearts you want to choose. Now you can only have one heart active at a time, but you can change them between levels. And to me, if I'm going to have a Barbarian support class, I would rather it be tailored to Wild Heart here rather than Wild Magic, because the Wild Magic Barbarian, again, it has supportive skills, but it leans on that magical side. And for Barbarian here, I'd rather be more like nature-based, animalistic, and Wild Heart does that job. Oh, and we also get to speak to animals at level 3 as well, so that's nice.
Let me kill. Let me eat him. Nice red prisoner full of meat. Let me eat. I'm hungry, so hungry.
Moving on to level 6, we pick up an animal aspect, and these are passive features that are permanent. Some of them will benefit your allies. Here's the list here. You get a lot of choices. And unlike the beast hearts we get that we unlocked at level 3 that changes our rage, this aspect here is permanent. So I would take your time and read through the list and really pick out what you think is going to benefit your party. At level 8, we pick up Land Stride. This means we can move through difficult terrain without being impeded. And this also affects if somebody's casting like a plant growth, we will move, or we will have advantage when we're moving through that as well. So pretty good. And then at level 10 for our last subclass feature, we get to pick another aspect. And again, these are permanent, so you don't get to change these between levels. So again, take your time and decide what's going to benefit your party the most. So when ranking Wild Heart Barbarian, and yes, I have all 4 Barbarians sitting at the table and nobody's thrown a punch yet. But anyways, when ranking Wild Heart here, I think I have to throw it in the A- tier. I think this is a really solid subclass in general, and I think the theme is on point as well. I actually like this subclass a lot. I just don't think I can justify putting it on the same level as Berserker and Giants. Alright y'all, that's how I would rank each of the Barbarian subclasses in Baldur's Gate 3. You let me know how you would rank them. Overall, I think Barbarian's very solid, a lot more solid than I actually was first anticipating. But here's the updated tier list with the Barbarian added. And I'm liking the flow of this. Now that A tier is getting pretty crowded, and I haven't changed anything from last time, but I'm thinking Tempest domain there, probably going to sneak up to S tier, and then maybe one of those Paladin subclasses goes down to A- tier. I just don't want A tier again to get like overcrowded. But overall, I'm pretty good with this list still. And yeah, that's it for this video. If you made it this far, thank you very much. I appreciate you. If you aren't subscribed, consider joining the channel if you like Baldur's Gate 3 content. We're also going to do some other fantasy buildcraft games later on, but right now it's a lot of BG3. So anyways, yeah, I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace and take care. Welcome back to the channel, y'all. Today I'm very excited because we get to continue our Versus series, and the class we've chosen today is Ranger. If this is your first time with the series, we're going to go through each of the Ranger subclasses, talk about their unique features and class actions, and then we're going to throw them into this tier list that will then be ranking them against all of the current subclasses we have gone over. So if you haven't checked out those other videos in the series, maybe watch them after this one. But without further ado, let's get started. First Ranger subclass we're going to talk about is the Hunter. Now, when you pick up Hunter, you get Hunter's Prey, where you get 1 of these passive features. You get Colossus Slayer, Giant Killer, and Horde Breaker. Colossus Slayer, kind of boring, but gives you a 1d8 to a target if they're below maximum HP. And then for Giant Killer, if you have a large or a bigger creature that attacks you, you can use your reaction as a melee attack. Now, while there are some cases where this can be useful, it's just not going to come up that often. Now, probably the best pick, at least for the early game, is Horde Breaker here. So if two enemies are standing close together, you can attack them one after the other. I'm not going to go on a huge tangent about Horde Breaker, but every time I bring this ability, I can't count how many times where the enemies are just standing a little too far apart. And then I feel like I made the wrong choice as far as my passive, because Colossus Slayer there, it'll work every time. But on the flip side, I feel like when I don't bring Horde Breaker, I start noticing all the situations where Horde Breaker would work. But I don't want to think about it too much, or I will be flip-flopping back and forth for the next 10 to 15 minutes. At level 7, we get a defensive tactic. So we got 3 choices here. We got Escape the Horde, which is going to give enemies disadvantage on their opportunity attacks against you. So this is mostly for getting into the mix and then trying to get away. This passive feature, it's okay. We then get Steel Will, which will give us advantage on our saving throws from being frightened. And this is actually pretty good because there's a lot of enemies in Baldur's Gate 3 that try to frighten you. And this status effect kind of sucks to have on you. And then our last choice is multi-attack defense. So when an enemy hits you, if they have an extra attack or a multi-attack, those next strikes will have a -4 to their attack roll. And this is a debuff that stays on them until their next turn. So out of the 3 of these, I like Steel Will and I like multi-attack defense. Overall, these are just some nice passive features. At level 11 for Hunter, we pick up Volley and we pick up Whirlwind. Now, these 2 abilities make Hunter one of the best, if not the best, AoE class in the game. The amount of damage they can do at an area is absolutely ridiculous, and that's not even factoring in if they have a potion of speed or if somebody has haste casted on them. If you've never played with a hunter in the late game, go ahead and try it for a few encounters, and you can come back to this video and thank me later. Now, when it comes to ranking the hunter, there's a lot of things we need to consider. At level 3, they get a nice power bump with something like Horde Breaker, and that can be really good. But they don't turn into an absolute monster until level 11. And that's basically the whole game. I mean, you'll have Act 3 left, but you're already done with most of the game. So we have to take into account how good is the class throughout the time you're playing it. And just as a reminder, we're not taking into account multiclassing either. I'm going to stick them into the B tier because their best feature doesn't come until late in the game. But depending on how the tier list is shaking out, this one might slip into A-, but I'm being conservative with it. It's just going to stay in B tier for now. Next up, let's do fan favorite ranger, the Gloomstalker. And as soon as you pick up this subclass, you are front loaded with a lot of great subclass features. The first one we get here is Dread Ambusher. So this is going to increase our movement speed, and it's also going to let us do an additional attack at the start of our turn. And that additional attack is going to do more damage, a 1d8. Additionally, we pick up Superior Dark Vision, so we can see up to 24 meters in the dark. And we also pick up 2 skills, Dread Ambusher Hide, and then Umbral Shroud. I really like Dread Ambusher Hide here because it lets us use stealth with our bonus action. So while in combat, after we're done doing all of our attacks and we have our increase in movement speed, we can use our bonus action to hide. And then when it's your next turn, when you attack, you're going to have advantage because you're coming from stealth. So with this kit alone at level 3, this makes Gloomstalker the strongest class in the game for Act 1. And I forgot to mention it, but Dread Ambusher also gives you +3 to your initiative, meaning you're going to be first in the turn order, and anybody on the field that you want dead, they're gone. At level 5, we pick up Misty Step, which is a great mobility option. And then at level 7, we pick up a passive feature, Iron Mind. We're going to get proficiency on our wisdom and our intelligence saving throws, so this is nice. At level 9, we do get the spell Fear, and this is nice. This is a cool concentration, but for a ranger here, I kind of think I'm just going to stick to Hunter's Mark, but it's a good spell overall. And then at level 11, we pick up Stalker's Fury, which is a passive feature. When we miss a weapon attack, you can make another weapon attack for free, and we can do this once per turn. So when it comes to ranking the Gloomstalker here, I have to stick it into A tier. Again, that's because that first initial kit you get at level 3 is just so damn strong throughout the game. Like I said, you're basically first in the turn order, and any enemy that you want gone, you can absolutely just delete them with how much damage you can output. Gloomstalker is almost like the de facto ranger, and there's a good reason for that. They just have an incredibly strong kit very early on. This is an easy A tier. Next up, we have a personal favorite of mine, and that's the Beastmaster. And speaking of Beast, come here, girl. Yeah, S tier class, S tier subclass, yeah. Ah, you bet your asking animal companion I pick as Beastmaster as Wolf. Okay, yeah. I'm sticking into S tier. I'll stick it into S tier. Okay, see you later. Okay, she's gone. Yeah, we're not sticking Beastmaster into S tier, so let's break it down real quick. Now, as level 3 as Beastmaster, you get to pick your animal companion, and by that I mean you get to pick a wolf. Now, what's nice about a wolf here is they have praise scent, so if they attack an enemy that has Hunter's Mark on them, they're going to do an additional 1d6. These beast companions are pretty good, but their size can make them kind of clunky to move around, and they don't have the best movement speed either. But having essentially an additional attack and then another ally on the field is never a bad thing. And yes, the irony isn't lost upon me that I have Ranger Shadow Art there with a wolf companion. Anywho, moving on. And at level 5, we will get the passive feature Companion's Bond. This will make your pet tankier, where they will get additional AC, and they will also have some more health. At level 7, they pick up exceptional training, so something like jump, dash, disengage, and help you can now do as a bonus action instead of a regular action. So this helps your beast companion do some supportive things without sacrificing their regular action for damage. Now at level 8, our beast companion does get more health, but as we've been leveling up as a Beastmaster, our animal companion, their appearance has changed. I believe that starts at level 5, and we're also picking up new class actions like Infectious Bite. Again, in the case of the wolf here. At level 11, we get Bestial Fury, and we have the ability to use Lupine Slash here. In addition to that, our animal companion here, our beast companion, gets extra attack. So if we're counting our ranger's regular attack and then they get an extra attack, add that to our beast's attack, and now they have an extra attack. That's 4 attacks. That's all coming from this one subclass. Now when ranking Beastmaster, it's a little tricky because depending on which beast you take, obviously you're going to get a different result. In the case of the wolf here, and I guess some of the larger ones like the bear too, moving them around can be a little bit clunky. But what I will say is, Beastmaster has a nice ramp up in power. Obviously, you get the big bump when you pick the subclass at level 3, and then they just continue to get stronger at a steady pace. And at level 11, when your beast companion unlocks basically their special class ability, on top of getting extra attack, Beastmaster is just really good. Just really good. So I think if you don't mind having a companion subclass, I think this settles into like an A- tier. But if you really don't vibe with having a companion or like a minion, I could see you putting into B tier. But I'm obviously a fan of animal classes, so it's staying in A- for me. And last up for the ranger here, we have the Swarm Keeper. At level 3, we get Praise Scent. So similar to Beastmaster, we will do additional damage on targets that have Hunter's Mark on them. We also get to pick up our swarm. You got bees, moths, and jellyfish. Each one of these come with their own additional effect. So once per turn, when you make an attack, your swarm abilities will pop up and you'll get 3 choices. We also pick up the spell Fairy Fire and the cantrip Mage Hand, and these are nice additions to have. Moving on to level 5, we pick up the spell Web. But at level 7, we get our Writhing Currents and our Writhing Tide. So Writhing Tide, it's essentially a bonus action that costs 1 of our currents, and it gives us a great mobility spell, kind of like Fly or maybe like a Misty Step, but it's really nice because it doesn't cost a spell slot. At level 9, we pick up Gaseous Form. This is more so something to do outside of combat, not necessarily something you want to do in combat because you can attack, but while outside of combat, you can go through like small cracks and stuff, so that's a nice utility option. And finally, at level 11, we get Mighty Swarm. So our swarm attacks, they all basically get upgraded. So our damage option, going to do more damage. Our teleport option, we're going to get 2 AC for it for 1 turn. And then our utility option will get an additional effect. So in the case of jellyfish, we're going to be able to shock our target and also disarm them if they have a weapon. For the moth, it's blind and slow. And then for bees, it's a pushback that can then potentially make them prone. And it looks like there's no room on the bench for the Swarm Keeper, but when we're ranking the Swarm Keeper, I think I have to stick it in A-. The Swarm feature is pretty good, and it procs every turn as long as you hit a target, and I do like Writhing Tide as a mobility option. Now their level 11 power bump with Mighty Swarm, probably my least favorite power gain when it comes to all the ranger subclasses. So to me, Swarm Keeper, similar to Beastmaster there, it just steadily gets stronger throughout the game without any like dips in power. Alright, and here is an update to the tier list here. You can see I'm putting Gloomstalker pretty high up there on A tier. Tempest Domain Cleric, I did just slip up into S tier because A tier was looking pretty crowded. but Beastmaster and Swarmkeeper both in that A- tier. Beastmaster obviously sitting at the top of the A- tier, and then I do think Hunter, because of how strong it gets at level 11, it's going to sit at the top of a B tier there. But that is all the Ranger subclasses. You guys let me know your favorite Ranger subclass and where you would put this on the tier list. But that's enough yapping from me. If you made it this far, I appreciate the hell out of you, and I'll see you next time. Peace and take care. Welcome back to the channel, y'all. Today we are ranking all of the fighter subclasses, and we're going to throw them into this tier list. Now keep in mind, we're not heavily weighing multiclassing or equipment you earn in the game too heavily, because we want to rank these subclasses standing all on their own. So with that out of the way, let's get started. So first fighter up on our list here is the Battle Master. Oh yeah, baby. You have your choice of fighter subclass at level 3, and for Battle Master, you get your battle maneuvers. So at the start here, you get to pick 3 maneuvers, and these are going to cost you a superiority die, and you get 4 of those. And these essentially will be like your class resource. So here are your maneuvers. There's a whole list of them here, so I'll just go over my favorite. I really like disarming attack here, and also menacing attack. And if you want kind of like a counter, go with riposte. This is definitely a favorite of mine. But you also can do like a support role with Battle Master as well, with something like Rally or even Commander's Strike. You have a lot of choices and flexibility on how you build out your Battle Master. Now this is the whole system for Battle Master here. So from here on, from this list, at level 7, you get 2 more, and you also gain another superiority die, so 5 total. And then at level 10, you get to choose an additional 2 maneuvers, but also your superiority die, it was a 1d8 when it added damage to an attack. Well, now it's a 1d10. All right, so when it comes to ranking the Battle Master, they are the perfect frontline character, but that's not the only thing they can do, because their maneuvers also have a ranged attack as well, meaning you can use a bow, crossbow, anything again at range. So just don't think of them as a frontline character. Think of them more as a master of basically every martial weapon. So because I think they are really good at being a frontline kind of brawler character, as well as having that ranged option, I'm going to stick them into the A tier, the tippity top of A tier, which is a little surprising to me, because prior to the final patch, I would have stuck them into S tier, but I'm trying to be very selective when it comes to the subclasses at that S tier ranking. And next up we have the Champion subclass. Their subclass feature is improved critical hit, so the roll you would need for a critical strike is now reduced by 1. And they also get, well, no wait, that's about it. Huh. Well, you know, I think Champion will probably get some skills a little bit later on. Let's keep leveling. Ah, here we go, level 7. We get the subclass features here. Remarkable athlete proficiency. You can add half your proficiency bonus to any strength, dexterity, and constitution checks that you are not proficient in. Okay, that's nice. Oh, well, we got something else here. Remarkable athlete jump. You're a master of your own body. Your athletic prowess extends beyond the usual. Your jump distance is increased by 3 meters? Huh. Okay. All right. Level 10 coming in strong here. We get a new passive. We get to pick another fighting style. What the is this? All right. So when it comes to ranking the champion here, something that I haven't brought up too much when it comes to what I factor into the rankings is the fun factor. And to me, champion has a 0 fun factor. Even somebody who's completely new to video games is kind of like, I still would not recommend champion to them. And don't get me wrong, if we are considered multi-classing, champion is excellent. But we're not for this list. And at the end of the day, they are still a fighter, meaning they have action surge and then improved extra attack at level 11, meaning they dominate the action economy, which is arguably one of the most important things when it comes to Baldur's Gate 3. But this is my tier list, which means it's super subjective. So the champion here, I'm sticking it at the very end of C tier, potentially even dropping into the D tier by the end of this whole series. And that really just comes down to, would I ever pick champion to play? The answer is no. Would I recommend anybody play champion? The answer is also No. The next subclass that is up is the Eldritch Knight. Now this is the fighter that has a lot of magic mixed into it. Right off the bat, we get Weapon Bond as a class action, which will bind our weapon to our hand, so that way when we throw it, it'll automatically return to us. So this is great for setting your Eldritch Knight as a throwing class, as long as the weapon you're binding has that thrown property. But that's not all. We get to pick 2 cantrips, and you can see right there, Booming Blade. This is a great choice that got added with the final patch. So obviously, gonna take that. We also have something like Firebolt or even Ray of Frost here for some range options. And then we have our little spell list here. Shield is a really good pick here, and so is something like Magic Missile, Chromatic Orb, or even Burning Hands. I'll just put Magic Missile there for right now. Then we also get an expanded spell as well. And I just like to take Longstrider if nobody else in your party has this, but this is a nice set of spells, very basic, but it's just going to help out your Eldritch Knight just across the board. So along the way, you're going to be picking up more spell slots, but at level 7 here, we get War Magic. So whenever we use a cantrip, we can make a weapon attack with our bonus action. This synergizes beautifully with Booming Blade. And also at level 7 here, we unlock our level 2 spell slots. And then right after level 7, at level 8 there, we get an expanded list for our level 2 spell slots. And taking something like Shadowblade here can be really strong. Although keep in mind, Eldritch Knights, your spell level only goes up to level 2. So Shadowblade's not going to do as much damage as it would if you multi-classed into another spellcaster like a wizard. That multi-class combination is absolutely devastating because Shadowblade is just a very strong spell when you upcast it. And the last noteworthy feature from Eldritch Knight is at level 11 we get Eldritch Strike. So when we attack a creature with our weapon, it has disadvantage on a spell that we cast before the end of your next turn. So this is kind of like a setup feature that you need to think about for something like a follow-up. Now, when ranking Eldritch Knight, I would say prior to the final patch before they got Booming Blade, I probably would have stuck them somewhere in like an A- tier. But with the final patch, I feel like it comfortably belongs in that A tier ranking. Now, if we took into account multi-classing, kind of the same for the champion here, it'd be probably into S tier in regards to the Eldritch Knight. But again, we're talking about these subclasses standing on their own 2 feet without multiclassing. So now let's move on to our last fighter subclass. And I think we saved the best for last with the Arcane Archer. Now with the Arcane Archer here, you get your Arcane Arrows. You got a little nice list here. Some of my favorites is something like Vanishing Arrow, Bursting Arrow, and then you got to take Seeking Arrow. This thing, just the path it takes to go to a target is just, it gets crazy sometimes. And then the fact that it never misses and then has that chance to apply Fairy Fire, god damn is that strong. That is just really good. And lastly, when you pick up the subclass, you do get to pick a cantrip as well. Guidance is really strong for outside of combat, but right off the bat, Arcane Archer is extremely strong with these Arcane Arrows. You only start out with 4, but this will eventually ramp up to 10 and then come back on short rest. Now we will be picking up more Arcane Shots and Arcane Charges as we level, but at level 7 here, we pick up Curving Shot. So when we miss a magical attack, we can use our bonus action and then it'll basically drift into like the next closest target, which is really funny to see. Also, we get Magic Arrow, so all of our ranged attacks are considered magical to overcome resistance. This is just kind of solidifying us as one of, if not the best, martial range class. And at level 10 here, we get 3 more Arcane Arrows, capping us off at 10 Arcane Arrow shots. Couple that with improved extra attack that we get at level 11 with Action Surge. Y'all, just take a minute. It is so busted. It's just, yeah, just saying it out loud is just, that is so many Arcane Arrow shots. Again, they come back on short rest. Like, holy shit. Quick aside, in the playtest server, because I had access to it, they didn't get this many Arcane Arrow shots, and it was very underwhelming. And then they cranked it up to this 10 spot here. Oh, what a difference. What a difference. So I think it comes to no surprise when ranking Arcane Archer here that this goes straight into S tier. I think this goes to the tippity top of S tier too. And I don't know what's going to top it because in Baldur's Gate 3, ranged characters are already very powerful. And the tools that the Arcane Archer has at their disposal, just crazy good. I was really fighting with the other fighters, fighting with the other fighters. That's funny to say. I was really debating how I was going to stack the Battle Master versus the Arcane Archer, because Battle Master was always kind of like an S tier class for me. And it was really butting heads with Arcane Archer, because I'm like, oh, Arcane Archer can just do so much more, but Battle Master has like a little versatility to it. But I think I've been beaten down enough. Arcane Archer is just the clear winner out of the two of them. Alright y'all, that's Fighter. Here is the updated tier list. Now I wouldn't worry too much about the left or right placement too much. Usually the middle of the pack there, that can flip-flop daily. It doesn't really affect things too much. Now on the top end and on the bottom end, I think those have a little bit more weight. But seeing something like Eldritch Knight in the middle there, not really a big deal. But what I will say is Champion there, all the way at the bottom of C tier. If we go through this all the subclasses, and nothing ends up in D tier, you bet your ass I'm putting Champion in D tier just because it's just zero fun in my opinion. But anyways, y'all, that's the video. If you made it this far, I appreciate the hell out of you, and I will see you next time. Peace and take care. Welcome back to the channel, y'all. Today we are continuing with our subclass tier list for Baldur's Gate 3. Now here is the updated list of what we have covered so far. I went ahead and added the names to the subclasses because I got a comment from one of y'all saying like, I'm a new player, I don't know what any of these icons mean, so hopefully this will help you out. But yeah, with that out of the way, we're doing the Sorcerer today, so let's go ahead and get started. Alright, and the first subclass for Sorcerer that we're going to talk about is Storm Sorcery. Now, at level 1, you get Tempestuous Magic, meaning when we use a level 1 spell, we can then use our bonus action to fly without proccing an opportunity attack. Now, there's some version of Baldur's Gate 3 where it would show you getting hit with an opportunity attack even if you were trying to fly away, but I don't think that's the case. I think that was just a bug. Now, at level 2, every Sorcerer gets access to meta magic. And at level 3, they get to pick the second tier of meta magic, and I just want to point out Quickened here because this will allow you to use your bonus action at the cost of some sorcery points to cast another spell. This makes every single Sorcerer really good, and why even the worst Sorcerer subclass is still going to rank pretty dang high. So I'm bringing it up here in the Storm Sorcery section just this once, but just know every Sorcerer has access to this. And at level 6, we pick up Heart of the Storm. So if we do lightning or thunder damage with a spell, it will then do a small AoE damage depending on, again, which element you do out of thunder or lightning. We also pick up Heart of the Storm resistance. So we're resistant to lightning and thunder damage. But the real benefit, I think, of level 6 here are these storm spells that you get access to. Most notably, Create or Destroy Water and Call Lightning. And why this is so good is because you can use your first spell slot to use Create or Destroy Water, you can get a target wet, and then use your meta magic and Quickened to use Call Lightning or any lightning spell and do double damage. This also works with ice spells as well, just in case your target is resistant to lightning damage, but this combination here makes Storm Sorcery extremely powerful, and very early on here at level 6. At level 11, we pick up our last subclass feature in the form of Storm's Fury. So this is a reaction that when we are struck by a melee attack, we can deal lightning damage to the attacker and possibly push them back. This is an okay reaction ability, and our kit is already extremely powerful, so this is just more like a cherry on top. Now, when it comes to ranking Storm Sorcery, I think I have to put it into S tier, and there's a lot of reasons why. First off is, of course, just being a sorcerer and having access to those meta magics makes you a really powerful spellcaster. But Tempestuous Magic there at level 1, that's a good mobility option. But at level 6, with the Heart of the Storm features you get, getting Create and Destroy Water and then Call Lightning and being able to do that combination for double damage is extremely powerful. This is the only sorcerer that can do that without multiclassing. So that gets a lot of points in my book, and just again, a really easy S tier pick for me. Next up, let's talk about Wild Magic Sorcerer. So at level 1, you get Wild Magic. So when you cast a spell, your magic surges, and then you might trigger one of these magical random effects. And here's the list right here. In addition to that, we get the Tides of Chaos, which we can get advantage on our next attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, but it's going to increase that chance of that wild magic surge afterwards. So this is kind of our wild card when it comes to a spell caster. At level 6, the subclass feature we get is Bend Luck. Now this is going to cost 2 sorcery points, but this is going to add a 1d4 bonus or penalty to an ability check. We can also use this on attack rolls and saving throws as a reaction, which can be really handy if you need a spell like Hold Person or Hold Monster to connect. Now at level 11, we pick up the subclass feature Controlled Chaos. So when an enemy spellcaster uses a spell, we can induce one of our wild magic surges on them. And remember, these surges, they can be both positive or negative, so you can end up helping out your enemies instead. Again, this kind of adds to that wild card nature of this subclass. And let's be honest, who doesn't love being a wild card sometimes, especially when you're the one who's not affected by that negative wild surge. Now, when it comes to ranking wild magic sorcerer, I think I have to stick it into A tier. Having that Tides of Chaos and Bend Luck to ensure that you get off an important spell, again, something like Hold Person or Hold Monster, that is really valuable. And then you sprinkle on those magic wild effects. Those can be really fun, especially if you're doing a playthrough with like a group of friends. And like I rank that really highly, so I think this one sits comfortably in A tier. The next subclass that we're going to talk about is Draconic Bloodline, and there's a lot that's going on with this subclass, especially at level 1 here. So we get Draconic Resilience, which is going to bump our armor class up to 13. This does not stack with mage armor, so keep that in mind. But we also get additional hit points depending on our sorcerer level. In addition to that, we get to pick up our dragon ancestry, so you get to pick a certain elemental type. Fire, acid, lightning, and cold. I usually just probably go between fire and lightning, and then that'll give you a free spell. So in the case of fire there, you pick up Burning Hands, so you don't actually need to pick that while you're leveling your sorcerer up. And the last thing we get at level 1, you actually get to alter your character's appearance and put on like these dragon scales. Now you don't have to put them on, but this is a cool subclass feature that, again, the other sorcerers don't have access to. So a little bit of like appearance aura farming or something like that. And at level 6, we pick up the subclass feature Elemental Affinity Damage. So when we cast a spell that matches our dragon line, in this example, we're using fire, we're going to add our charisma modifier on top of that damage. And what makes this so good is because in Baldur's Gate 3, there's a lot of items that already are going to add your spell casting modifier to your spell damage. So this just gets put on top of that. And in addition to that, we also get Elemental Affinity Resistance. So when we cast a spell that matches our dragon ancestry, we also can spend a sorcery point to become resistant to that damage. So for example, we cast a fire spell, we can then use our reaction and a sorcery point to become resistant to fire. I actually find this reaction to be not very useful, and I usually just toggle it off, but it can come in handy sometimes. But the real feature out of level 6 here is that Elemental Affinity Damage. And at level 11, we pick up our last subclass feature for Draconic here, and we just pick up Fly as a movement ability, which is actually really amazing, again, for movement. This is one of the best movement skills in the game, and we just get it intrinsically at level 11 here, which is big thumbs up. And I think it comes as no surprise, but Draconic Bloodline is also an S tier subclass, kind of similar to Storm Sorcery. It can just dish out a lot of damage, and then getting Fly at level 11, it's one of the best movement abilities in the game. Couple that with, again, the meta magics, and yeah, just a really easy S tier pick. It's not my favorite Sorcerer subclass, but I can't deny just how good this subclass is overall. Now, last subclass we have up is Shadow Magic, and this is the latest addition to the Sorcerer class. At level 1, we get Eyes of the Dark, which means we can see in the dark up to 24 meters. We also pick up Strength of the Grave, so if we hit 0 hit points, we will not be downed. Instead, we will come back with 1 hit point remaining. This is actually a really good survivability feature. I find it comes in handy more times than I like to admit, but hey, there it is. And then at level 3, we pick up the spell Darkness, and we also pick up the unique spell Eyes of the Darkness, which is the same thing as Darkness, except for it costs 2 sorcery points. But additionally, it gives us the Eyes of the Dark effect, which lets us see in both magical and non-magical darkness up to 25 meters. Now, up until this point, Shadow Magic may be a little bit underwhelming, but at level 6 here, we get Hound of Ill Omen. This makes this subclass a pet subclass because we get this hound that we can summon at any time. It costs 3 sorcery points. Now this hound comes with its own skill set. If it bites a target, there's a chance it'll put a debuff on that target, and that debuff will tell you to match an elemental type, say like ice for this example. And if that target is then hit with any ice spell or any ice effect, your sorcerer will be refunded a sorcery point. It also has this Umbral Tangle ability, which will root targets in close proximity. But the best feature of this hound is when they are hit, they can use their reaction to basically create a mini version of themselves, a lesser hound. And then that lesser hound has its own Umbral Tangle. And if that lesser hound is hit, they can then use their reaction to spawn another lesser hound. Meaning this one minion can quickly become a crap ton of minions, making this shadow magic sorcerer kind of like, again, a pet class on top of like a minion mancer class as well. And at level 11 we pick up Shadow Walk as a bonus action, meaning we can teleport into any shadow. So this subclass also has its own really good movement ability. But in addition to that, once you use Shadow Walk, your next spell has that meta magic distance spell effect, meaning you can cast that spell at a really far distance. Alright, and when it comes to ranking Shadow Magic Sorcerer, this one's a little bit of a weird one because of that pet mechanic, that Hound of Ill Omen, and that's not going to be for everybody. But me, I like what they're doing with the Hound here, so I'm going to be putting it into A tier. Especially because as long as you take care of your Hound, in most encounters in this game, those lesser Hound spawns are going to completely snowball so many of these fights into your favor. It can get a little wacky, a little out of control, but it's just really fun to watch. So for me, yeah, it's got to be an A tier. Alright y'all, that is all the Sorcerer subclasses ranked. Now here's the updated tier list. You can see that I had to move Oathbreaker and Ancients down to A- tier. And that A tier is getting very crowded. We're probably going to have to do another category, like maybe like a B+, because I already know there are some more A tiers, or a lot more A tiers when it comes to the classes that we haven't ranked yet. So again, we want to kind of shoot for a nice bell curve. And like I said, I think at the beginning of doing these tier lists, Baldur's Gate 3, most all of the subclasses are viable. It's a very much a top heavy balance. So there's just a lot of powerful choices in Baldur's Gate 3. So that's why there again, we're going to have a lot of like B+, A-, A, and S tier picks, and not so much many that are down, I would say, in like the C or the D tier. You got to be some sort of special to be ranked that low in this case. But yeah, guys, that is the video. I'm glad to be back to ranking these subclasses. Kind of went on a little bit of a hiatus, but we're back. We'll start pumping these out. And with Sorcerer here, we're at the halfway mark. So yeah, looking forward to doing the rest. And I will see you guys next time. Peace and take care. Welcome back to the channel, y'all. Today we're continuing with our class and subclass tier list for Baldur's Gate 3. And today we're going to be covering the Wizard, which is my favorite. I can't say that with a straight face. Anywho, we're going to be covering the Wizard today. Now here's our current tier list of all the classes that we've already covered. And you can see that A tier is getting very crowded. Now the Wizard has 9 subclasses in Baldur's Gate 3, so we're going to try to move fast. But before we get started, consider hitting that like button for the YouTube algorithm, and let's get going. Alright, and the first wizard subclass that we're going to rank is the Abjuration Wizard. So you pick this up at level 2, you pick up all the wizard subclasses at level 2, and for Abjuration here you get Arcane Ward, and this is going to put a barrier around your wizard that's going to intensify as your wizard increases in levels. And so when an enemy hits you, it's only going to decrease your ward by 1, making this one of, if not the tankiest subclass in the game. And after your Arcane Ward starts to get depleted, you just need to simply cast an Abjuration spell, and that'll easily build your stacks back up. So spells like Mage Armor or Glyph of Warding, these are going to be perfect for this subclass. Now at level 6 we pick up our next subclass feature, which is going to be Projected Ward. So when our allies take damage, we can basically lend them our Arcane Ward, and it's only going to deplete our barrier by 1. So this actually makes Abjuration Wizard here a really good support class when it comes to your allies. And at level 10, we pick up our last subclass feature, which is going to be improved abjuration. So after a short rest, our arcane ward, the stacks that it'll get, it'll match our wizard's level. This is going to be a really easy way, even more easy than it already is, to build up our barrier for, again, building up your arcane ward. So you can spend less spell slots, again, keeping up your barrier, and use them for either something like haste or throwing fireballs, using other spells essentially. So when it comes to ranking abjuration here, they're extremely hard to kill, making them one of, if not the tankiest subclass in the game. Pair that with their ability to lend out their projected ward for their allies. And again, because they're so hard to kill, this makes it one of the best solo subclasses in the game as well. I don't think I can put this anywhere other than S tier. So we're starting off really strong with the wizards, but don't worry, it's all downhill from here. And our next wizard subclass that we're going to rank is the Blade Singing Wizard. Now this is the latest addition with Baldur's Gate 3's final patch. So for Blade Singing here, first off, you get to your proficient in light armor, but you also get to pick up a weapon. And you can see your Blade Singer's weapons here. What you choose actually in the screen here doesn't matter. You're proficient with all these weapons. In addition to that, we're going to get these Blade Song charges, which go along with our class action, which is the Blade Song. So while we're in this Blade Song stance, this is a class action, doesn't cost an action point or a bonus action. So as soon as you get into combat, you can trigger Blade Song here, and this is going to give you 2 to your armor class. It's going to increase your movement speed. You do get advantage in acrobatics, but the +2 to your Constitution saving throws, really good. While you're in this Blade Song stance, you also unlock the ability to do a Blade Song Climax, which is going to take you out of this stance. Now, this Blade Song Climax, it's going to do damage, but also heal allies in this area or this radius. Now, this is going to be using a resource called Blade Song Charges, and you build up 2 types of charges. Every time you cast a spell in your Blade Song stance, it's going to build up a damage charge. And every time you attack with your weapon, it's going to build up a healing charge. And depending on how many charges you have, that's what your Blade Song Climax is going to use as far as damage or healing. So in my opinion, this is a very unique and fun way to play Baldur's Gate 3. Now at level 5, we pick up another Blade Song charge. You start off with 2, but now we're going to be at 3 charges, and you need to use these charges to enter your Blade Song stance. Call it a stance, but it could also be interpreted as like a form as well. And then at level 6, we pick up extra attack, making Blade Singing here both a spellcaster and a melee martial character. And then at level 9, we pick up another charge, so we're at a total of 4 now. And then finally, at level 10, we pick up our last subclass feature, which is Song of Defense. So anytime we take damage while we're in our Blade Song form, we can use a spell slot to subtract 5 damage per that spell slot level. So for example, if we use a level 1 spell slot, we will subtract 5 damage. If we use a level 2 spell slot, we'll subtract 10 damage. Now initially when I was thinking about where I was going to be ranking Blade Singing, I was going to base it off of the Blade Song Climax, because that can be a little bit tricky to build up those charges and make it feel like efficient and powerful, because I would say veteran players, most rounds don't last that long, so you'd really have to be on top of your game of building up these charges, and then the result probably just not going to be as strong as you would like. But I think I'm actually going to rank it a little bit higher. I'm going to be putting it into A tier. And that's because of just the base benefits of being in your Blade Song stance. You add on top of that your extra attack that you get at level 6. And then just the baked in feature about being a wizard and having every spell accessible to you. All of this stacked on top of each other just makes this a very powerful subclass. Alright, and the next subclass that's up is Conjuration. And their subclass feature is Minor Conjuration, Great Water. I feel like we already have a spell that does that. Anywho, I'm sure it'll get better. Now at level 6, we pick up the subclass action here, Benign Transposition Teleport. So we can teleport to a nearby unoccupied space or swap places with an ally until long rest. Don't we already have a spell that does that? Anywho, I'm sure the subclass will get better. Alright then, at level 10, the subclass feature we get is Focus Conjuration. Damage taken while you're concentrating on a conjuration spell will not break your concentration. That's kind of underwhelming. Anywho, I'm sure it'll get better. Well, y'all, it actually didn't get any better. Conjuration is just lame in my opinion. But there are plenty of water jugs in the map, and its teleportation ability is only once per long rest, but you can like refresh it by using another conjuration spell. It's just a lot of work for, again, teleportation in this game is kind of easy. We have something like Dimensional Door, Misty Step, Enhanced Sleep. It's not the best, I would say, mobility option. And then not being able to break your concentration on conjuration spells, sure, that can be nice, but Defeat Warcaster kind of can cover you there by giving you advantage. And for that to be your last subclass feature, again, this subclass is just kind of lame. We're going to stick it into the D tier and we're just going to move on. There's very much a reason why nobody ever talks about this subclass. Alright, and the next wizard subclass that is up is Divination. In Divination, the subclass feature is this portent die system. So what this will allow you to do is basically change out any attack roll and any saving throw roll with these portent die. Now these are random as far as what dice number are they going to be. So you get 2 at the beginning here at level 2, and again these will refresh at every long rest. Now what's nice about these portent dies are you use them as a reaction, but this actually doesn't use your reaction ability. And so this is a very handy way to ensure that you get a dice roll that you really want. Now at level 6 we pick up our next subclass feature, which is Expert Divination. And so we're going to get another portent die, so a total of 3. And then when we take a short rest, we're going to get a prophecy. This is essentially going to be like a little quest to complete. And once we do it, we're going to regain a missing portent die. So kind of a fun little feature here in my opinion. Now at level 10, we pick up Third Eye. We pick up this version of Third Eye Dark Vision, and then Third Eye See Invisibility. So we'll be able to see invisible creatures, and then the Dark Vision version we'll be able to see in dark places. This subclass feature kind of lame in my opinion for something that we get so late into in the game at level 10. Just yeah, not so cool. So when it comes to ranking Divination for the wizard, I kind of want to throw it into B tier. I was thinking about putting it into C tier because I feel like the RNG nature of the portent dies, but I think that can be a little bit fun. Unfortunately though, yeah, at level 10 there, that Third Eye feature that we get, not very useful in my opinion, kind of underwhelming, especially that late in the game. But I do think the base portent die system, very cool, very unique, a good way to ensure some dice rolls, a little bit of RNG, definitely not going to be for everybody, but I do think it's solid, so probably going to sit at like the very tail end of B tier. Now next up we have Enchantment Wizard, and their subclass feature they get is Hypnotic Gaze. Now when you use this, you will charm and incapacitate a creature or target, basically a person, but you have to be in melee range, and you can only do this once per long rest, which is kind of my gripe with it because it's essentially like an action that you can use that is kind of like hold person. Now it doesn't cost a spell slot, but again you got to be in melee range, which as a spellcaster that can kind of put you in some tricky situations, especially if your target wins the saving throw if you're using Hypnotic Gaze on them. But if you do end up succeeding your Hypnotic Gaze, you can use Maintain Hypnotic Gaze, and that'll increase the duration of how long they are charmed and incapacitated. So this subclass feature here is pretty good for locking down a single target for one encounter. And then at level 6, Enchantment gets Instinctive Charm. So as a reaction, if an enemy is attacking you, you can charm them. I think Minthara gets this inherently for like her character class ability or a character reaction. So this is good, no complaints there. And then at level 10, we get our last subclass feature, we get Split Enchantment. So our enchantment spells that are usually where we target one target, we can now target 2 enemies with them. So this works with something like Hold Person and Hold Monster, not with something like Confusion or Slow, because those are already like area effect spells, so it's just a single target once. Now with Hold Person and Hold Monster, you can upcast the spell to hit multiple targets. This just means you don't have to upcast it again if you want to target an additional person, so 2 total. So like Divination, Enchantment here, I was kind of teeter-tottering between C and B tier, but in the case of Divination, those portent dies, I just think they're more universally useful, where Enchantment here, this is very much a control wizard if you want to lock down targets. That's what you're kind of playing into. And that's not really for everybody, and that's kind of like, I would put that into a niche subclass category. So for me, Enchantment here, I'm going to put it into C tier. It can be useful. I just don't think a lot of people would be picking Enchantment Wizard here for a control class. I think other subclasses do it much better. And next up is Evocation Wizard. So our subclass feature here, Sculpt Spells, it basically creates a pocket where any spell that you're doing that has area effect that's an evocation spell, you will not hit your allies and they will succeed their saving throws. And this is great because A lot of spells in this game are evocation. We have something like Burning Hands and Thunder Wave. And again, this won't hit your allies. This is very new player friendly. Now at level 6 we get the subclass feature Potent Cantrip, so our cantrips are harder to evade, and even if they do evade them, they take half damage. This is really good for ensuring, again, that you're doing consistent damage, because cantrips get pretty good later on and they're just a consistent source of damage for a spellcaster even when you run out of spell slots. So this is just a really nice subclass feature. And at level 10, we pick up the subclass feature Empowered Evocation. So this is going to add our intelligence modifier to those spells. Most of the evocation spells are like the heavy hitters in this game. Chain Lightning, Fireball, Ice Storm, Cold to Cold. Again, most of the heavy damage dealers are evocations, and this just makes them even stronger. So Evocation Wizard to me is the most new player friendly spellcaster in the game, especially because when you're using something like Fireball, you're not going to be hitting your allies, but the fact that they get the empowered version where they're adding their intelligence modifier to them, yeah, this is just a really solid subclass. I'm going to put it in A tier. Illusion is the next wizard subclass that's next, and their subclass feature is Improved Minor Illusion, which just lets you use your minor illusion now as a bonus action. So that's cool. I'm sure it gets better. And at level 6 we pick up See Invisibility. Great. And level 10 we get Illusory Self. So we will create a duplicate of ourselves when we're attacked that will cause our foe to automatically miss. Yeah, this subclass is going into D tier. Next up is Necromancy. Nice. Cool. We like that. So their subclass features Grim Harvest. So once per turn, that's good. If you kill a creature with a spell, you regain the hit points equal to twice that spell's level. Thrice if you used a Necromancy spell. This is good. Off to a good start here. And at level 6 we pick up Undead Thralls, additional undead. So when we use Animate Undead, we get an additional undead minion. Good. And then we also pick up Better Summon. So our animated dead will have more hit points. And then as we level up, we're going to be giving them our proficiency bonus to their damage. And also when we level up, we're going to be giving them more health. So really playing into the undead fantasy. I like this. What else do we got? Well, what we got is at level 10, we get the subclass featured Inured to Undeath. So we are resistant to necrotic damage, and then our maximum hit points can't be reduced. Fortunately, I don't think this last subclass feature really sticks the landing with Necromancy. Started off promising, but this year, it's okay. Now when ranking Necromancy here, I am thinking about another subclass that kind of plays into this similar role, and I think it does a better job. Necromancy is solid, so I'm going to be sticking it into B tier. And the last wizard subclass is Transmutation. I actually like this subclass. So what do they get? They get Experimental Alchemy. So you can brew 2 alchemical solutions instead of 1 when you're combining the extracts. You just have to succeed that medicine check of 15. This is very much like a camp subclass. Not necessarily you want to bring with you, or not necessarily somebody you want to be with you like in your party for combat, but somebody that's nice to have around the camp. And we're definitely playing into that because at level 6 we get these transmuter stones. Now there's a whole list of these stones that you can make. These stones here do all sorts of things. So again, really playing into that camp subclass kind of role. And for level 10, our subclass feature, we can turn into a blue jay and fly around in like a polymorph form because, I don't know, why not? So Transmutation Wizard here, a little bit of a weird subclass, definitely very niche because really good at being like this camp character for you. That's not going to be for everybody. I don't really like to do this every playthrough is have a transmuter. So again, because it's so niche but very useful, I'm going to stick it into C tier. Alright y'all, that is the video, that is our ranking. Here is the updated list. Now you can take a look at where we placed everything. I am starting to feel a little bit bad for putting Champion so low. I was definitely harsh on that subclass, so thinking I'm gonna move them up because I just don't think they're in that caliber, as far as they belong in that C tier there. But anyways, let me know what you guys think about the wizard class in Baldur's Gate 3. For me, they're kind of all over the place when it comes to their subclasses. But anyways, That's the video. If you made it this far, thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Peace, and take care. Welcome back to the channel, y'all. Today we are continuing with our tier list for Baldur's Gate 3, judging the classes and then their subclasses. In this video, we're going to be covering the Rogue. Here is our tier list so far. Now, when it comes to Rogue here, I need to make something very clear about the tier list and what we've been doing so far. We're judging the classes and their subclasses based purely on if you stay them the entire way 1 to level 12, meaning no multiclassing, no dipping, no splitting. That really comes into effect of how we're going to rank Rogue here because, well, staying a pure Rogue is something a lot of people don't do. But anyways, let's get started. Now the first Rogue subclass that we're going to rank is the Thief. Now every Rogue gets sneak attack. This adds a 1d6 to either your melee or your range attacks as long as you have advantage. And as you level up the Rogue, this sneak attack damage increases by another 1d6. So by level 12, you're doing an additional 6d6. This is a metric ton of damage that doesn't cost a class resource and you only have to have advantage with it. Really good. Now at level 3, that's when you get to pick your Rogue subclass. For Thief here, we get 2 class features or subclass features. We get Fast Hands, which is an additional bonus action. That's pretty good. And we also get second story work where we don't take as much falling damage. We're resistant to that sort of damage. But really, it's only that extra bonus action that I think is a big plus for this subclass. Now, it's not until level 9 that we get our next subclass feature, and it's Supreme Sneak. We basically get to cast invisibility on ourselves or invisible, and that costs an action, and we can do it between short rest. So when it comes to ranking the Thief here, gosh, this is a tough one because you can see that the sneak attack damage here, 23 to 58. You can only do this once per turn, but I have bad equipment on right now, and still that's a lot of damage as long as you have advantage. That's not very hard to do. But I will say that you're kind of locked into picking some feats, and I feel like some of the other classes can do this same job much better. It's either Thief here is either going to be in upper C tier or very low B tier for me. I think I have to stick it into C tier. And the next Rogue subclass is going to be the Assassin. Now at level 3 we get 3 subclass features here. We get Assassinate Initiative, so in combat you have advantage on your attack rolls against creatures that haven't taken a turn yet. That's pretty good, essentially because sneak attack, again, you need advantage for it, so that's a really easy way to get that. And then we also get Assassinate Ambush here, so successful attack rolls on surprise creatures, that's a guaranteed critical hit. Really good if you're that type of player that likes, again, to sneak before you get into combat and then open up a fight that way. I usually don't. I usually just kind of like to run in there and see what happens. So not necessarily my playstyle, but still really good. And the last feature here is Assassin's Alacrity. So at the beginning of every turn, even if you start it outside of combat, you're going to get your action and your bonus action right at the start of combat without losing it. Unfortunately, you can have a setting in your difficulty menu there that will basically give everybody Assassin's Alacrity. So that's a little unfortunate, but if you don't play with that setting on, this is still really good. In a nutshell, Assassins are basically a one-trick pony where their first turn, they are wiping somebody off the board, no questions asked. That's strong, really strong. The question then becomes, okay, what are they doing for the rest of the combat encounter, especially if fights last like 3 to 5 turns, even longer. I know really proficient players in this game, usually battles take 1 to 2 turns, generally. But new players, Assassin is probably not going to be for you unless you're just locked into playing that type of rogue playstyle. Now, it's not until level 9 that you get your next subclass feature, and you get Infiltration Expertise, where you get to basically do disguise your character, that skill. And there are a ton of ways to do that in the game. It being an assassin subclass feature here, it's not that it can't be useful, it's just it's so readily available that it's just sort of like, okay, cool. And if you haven't noticed yet, yeah, rogues, they're kind of very front loaded. Usually level 3 is when they get all their good features, and then after that, the rest are kind of like mediocre, underwhelming. So when it comes to ranking the assassin subclass, you basically have a guaranteed way to get a critical hit. Take note that critical hits, yes, they do apply to sneak attack as well, meaning you do just delete a lot of enemies right off the bat, turn 1. But there's a little bit of planning involved, and then after you delete that character or enemy off the field, what do you do then? It's just like, okay. So unfortunately, Assassin kind of falls into the same spot as the Thief, except for the Thief at least has an extra bonus action to attack with. I think I have to stick this one into C tier as well. Maybe you could make a case for like low B tier, but yeah, guys, if this was, believe me, if this was a list that took into account multiclassing or splitting, Thief and Assassin would be up there in like A-, A tier easily. But we're just talking about the pure subclass, and this really just isn't my playstyle, and I don't see a lot of value in it compared to the other classes and other subclasses. God damn, Nomad, you sure are a Debbie Downer about the rogue. I'm not trying to be. Anyways, moving on. And next up is the Arcane Trickster, and this one has seen a huge buff since the final patch for Baldur's Gate 3, because Arcane Tricksters are essentially like spellcaster rogues. Cantrip wise, they get to pick up Booming Blade. This is a great damage option for melee characters that is a cantrip. You can do it once per turn, you only need an action, obviously you need to be in melee range. Huge, really good damage there. As far as the other cantrips, I'm not too worried about it. Spell wise, now their spell selection, not that great, but they do have access to the expanded spells. So something like Shield, Magic Missile, these are all really good choices. Arcane Trickster, there's a lot more than meets the eye when it comes to this subclass. And also, yes, Booming Blade can crit and then trigger your sneak attack as well. So this is a lot of damage stacking on top of itself, like if you build into critical hits with your Arcane Trickster. And while you're leveling up as an Arcane Trickster, you can replace spells. So you can take something like Color Spray off and then take a more useful spell, something like, again, Magic Missile. Maybe you don't have somebody with Long Strider or Enhanced Leap. A little bit of versatility when you're leveling up, giving you some options at least between levels, because the other rogues, there's not really a whole lot you're choosing when you're between levels. Now at level 7 here, we get access to our level 2 spell slots, and these spells that are available to us, not so good. I mean, Hold Person's pretty good, and so is Mirror Image, but let's take Invisibility, and actually we can do replace our spell. So again, we're using Color Spray in this example, and give ourselves something like, oh, I don't know, Shadow Blade, one of the best spells in the game, especially for a melee user. So Shadow Blade here, on top of Booming Blade, on top of our sneak attack. A lot of things stacking on top of itself for the Arcane Trickster, all baked into this subclass intrinsically. Love this. Really, really strong. Now, is this as strong as something like an Eldritch Knight? No, I don't think so in my opinion, but this is still a very good combination. And then at level 8, we get another choice as far as expanded spells. I would take something that does either AoE damage or uses your bonus action. We're just going to take Misty Step, and then we'll keep moving on. And then at level 9, we get our last subclass feature, Magical Ambush. So while we are hidden, enemies have disadvantage on their saving throws against our spells. This can be handy. Now, when it comes to ranking the Arcane Trickster, man, I really like, again, Booming Blade with your Shadow Blade. Get a crit, trigger sneak attack. Got to build into criticals. I think that goes without saying for every rogue there, but you do have to take some feats that are kind of mandatory for a rogue here. And it's good, but again, it falls into the trappings of no extra attack, and then not being able to choose a fighting style. And unlike the other two rogue subclasses, one really, in my opinion, really doesn't get going until that level like 7 mark. Prior to that, yeah, you'll have something like Booming Blade, but if you take like a Warlock that's a Hex Blade, they get Booming Blade and they get Shadow Blade very early on top of like extra attack. So it's good on paper, what I'm saying here, but in the grand scheme of things, again, comparing it to other subclasses, I think I had to settle this one into like B tier. I don't think it can go any higher than that. And last, and certainly not least, is the subclass, the Swashbuckler, the latest addition to Baldur's Gate 3. Now, the subclass features we get: fancy footwork if we make a melee attack against a target. It then can't hit us with opportunity attack if we try to run away. We also get rakish audacity. We get a bonus to our initiative, which is going to increase with our rogue levels. And then we no longer need advantage to trigger our sneak attack as long as we're in like melee range, and then we ourselves don't have disadvantage. Funny story about Swashbuckler. Not a funny story, but true story. My buddy is obsessed with this subclass. He's not a D&D guy, but we do play Baldur's Gate 3. And we've made like 3 or 4 different campaigns with various friends. Every time he picks Swashbuckler now. He loves this subclass. Even when we try to persuade him to do another subclass or pick something else like Fighter, he does it for like maybe a couple encounters. He's like, I'm going back to Swashbuckler. Loves this subclass, and yeah, this one's pretty good. I like this subclass a lot. Let's keep going. Now, at level 4, we get a lot of good subclass actions here. We get Dirty Trick, Flick of the Wrist, so we can disarm a target if they have a weapon, but it's also going to give us advantage, and this is called Dirty Advantage. So one of the biggest problems I would say with melee characters, or everybody in general in the early game, is that attack roll. And a lot of people miss all the time. That's why I love using Bless, usually in like Act 1, kind of phases out during Act 2, but hitting targets is such a pain in the butt. Not with Swashbuckler here, because they're always giving themselves advantage that doesn't cost like a spell slot or a class resource. They just do it all on their own. We also get Vicious Mockery. It's going to do the same thing. This is a bonus action. And then we get Sand Toss, Pocket Sand.
Give it! Pocket sand!
So with these 3 actions here, we always have something to do with our bonus action that then sets up our regular attack there, which is going to be a sneak attack because we're going to have advantage. And we are just this basically full kit at level 4. Very deadly. Similar to, I would say, something like Gloomstalker that peaks early on and is just very strong because of how efficient they are with their action economy. Swashbuckler does the same thing. They're very good at singling out targets and basically moving from one person to the next and taking them out systematically. Now, like the other subclasses, their next subclass feature doesn't happen until level 9, and they get Panache, or as I like to say, Panache. Yeah.
Arrivederci.
Arrivederci.
That's a joke if you've been with the channel for a while. But anyways, Panache here, this will give enemies a disadvantage on anybody else except for the Swashbuckler. But if they fail that roll, then they become charmed anyways, and then they can't attack the Swashbuckler. So this is an okay, I'd say, class action, but I'd rather be doing what we started back in level 4 there. That playstyle is just so good to me that Panache, it's okay. I think Swashbuckler, I'm going to stick it in A- tier because no matter what stage of combat it is, or before an encounter, middle of the encounter, they are always active with their bonus action and their action, and those are effective tools. Really like Swashbuckler. Maybe I'm being a little biased because of my friend, but I think that's where it sits. Alright y'all, that is the tier list for the Rogue. They have now been added to the roster. It looks something like this. We went ahead and moved Champion up. I could not in good faith put Champion below Thief and Assassin. I think Champion, just baseline Fighter, is better than both of those subclasses, especially just in the middle of combat in my playstyle. Again, I like the Bull Rush in there. I don't like to do too much sneaking and opening up encounters that way. That's just my style. Let me know what you think about the Rogue down below, especially in Baldur's Gate 3 in general. I know, again, biggest complaints about Rogue is they don't get to pick out a weapon fighting style, and then they also don't get extra attack, but they do get other things. You know, they're really good at like lock picking and stuff outside of combat, but I don't know. You guys let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace, take care. Welcome back to the channel, y'all. Today we are continuing with our rankings of all the Baldur's Gate 3 subclasses. Today we're going to be tackling the Warlock. Here is our current list as far as all the classes that we've already covered. Now there are 4 Warlock subclasses, so not going to be a super long video, so let's get started. Now before we get started with all the subclasses, let's go ahead and talk about the basics of the Warlock, because they're a spellcaster but also a martial class. A little bit of a hybrid. And every Warlock subclass has the ability to pick up the Eldritch Blast cantrip, which is one of the best cantrips in the game. In addition to that, they can modify this Eldritch Blast with something like Repelling Blast, and they can also pick up Agonizing Blast as an Eldritch Invocation. And at level 3, every Warlock gets to pick up a Pact of the Boon. If they take something like Pact of the Blade, they're going to use their Charisma modifier with their martial weapons instead of Dexterity and Strength, letting them double dip with their Charisma modifier to not only help out their spells, but again, their weapon damage as well. And the last thing I want to note about every Warlock is the way that their spells work. Now, Warlocks only have a few spell slots available to them, but they get refreshed on short and long rest. And in addition to that, as you gain Warlock levels, your spell strength will increase, and it'll eventually cap out at level 5 spells. So for example, if you're a level 11 Warlock, you're going to have 3 levels 5 spell slots you can use, and if you're casting a level 3 spell, like Fireball, it is always going to be a level 5 Fireball. There is no way to downscale it to a level 3 Fireball. So you're always just going big dick essentially with all your spells. So those are the Warlock basics that I kind of want to cover, because I think it's important to point out these intrinsic strengths that every Warlock subclass has access to. So essentially, TLDR, every Warlock subclass is very strong. Now, the first Warlock subclass that we're going to talk about is the Archfey. And the Archfey, they get new subclass features at level 1, 6, and 10, and in between there they get expanded spell choices, and if they're really good spells I will point them out, but otherwise I'll probably just skip over them. Now, what does the Archfey get? Well, their first class action is Fey Presence, where they can charm or frighten an enemy up to 2 turns. This class action will come back on short rest, and in the beginning of the game, this is pretty solid. This is actually really good in my opinion. Now, those expanded spells that I was just talking about, they get access to Fairy Fire, which is a good spell, and Sleep, which also can be useful, but you don't have to take these spells if you don't want to. Like, if you want to take Hex and Hellish Rebuke, you can do that too, but you just have the option of taking Fairy Fire and Sleep, where the other Warlock subclasses, they're not going to have access to that. Now, at level 6, the subclass feature we pick up is Misty Escape. So when we are hit, we can use a reaction to become invisible, and then on our next turn we get Misty Step. This, in my opinion, is a really good reaction ability that's very unique to the Archfey. It's kind of like having Vanish from Final Fantasy Tactics, where it's going to stop enemies from attacking you, and then when it's your turn, you're going to have advantage on attacking them. So it's kind of like the old switcheroo, and I really like Archfey for this. Now, our next subclass feature comes at level 10, and we get Beguiling Defenses, so we just basically cannot be charmed, which honestly, at level 10 here, it's not the greatest subclass feature in my opinion. But we are still a Warlock, so we're still, insanely strong. So when ranking the Archfey, I do think it is probably the weakest Warlock subclass, but that's not too much, I would say, a negative for the subclass overall, because at the end of the day, they are still a Warlock, and Warlocks are insanely strong. So I'm going to be putting this one into the A- tier, which means, yep, all the other ones are probably going to be going above this, meaning that higher side of the tier list is about to get a little bit more crowded. Next subclass up is the Fiend, and the expanded spells that they get are Command and Burning Hands. Command is probably, isn't not the best level 1 spell in the game, that and Magic Missile, but Command is amazing, so huge plus for the Fiend already. In addition to that, their subclass feature, Dark One's Blessing, when they reduce an enemy's hit points to 0, we get temporary hit points based on our Charisma modifier and our Warlock level. So this is kind of like a siphon feature, kind of reminds me of being like a vampire. Now, to save us some time on the other expanded spells they get, instead of stopping at every level, I think we should just talk about them now. At level 3, they get Scorching Rays, which is amazing, especially if you pair it with Hold Person. Really good there. Level 5, they get Fireball. Enough said about Fireball. And then at level 7, nothing really that special, but I think Fire Shield is pretty good. But level 9, they get Cone of Cold, and I think that's one of the best high-level spells as far as just this shotgun blast of ice. Really solid there. So unlike Archfey, I think a lot of the spells that the Fiend gets here that's unique to their subclass, I think they're just straight up just great across the board. And at level 6 we get our next subclass feature, and we get Dark One's Own Luck. Now this is going to add a 1d10 to our ability checks, and this is good because a Warlock is already working with Charisma, meaning they're a great character to have as the face of the party, and this is just going to help you pass ability checks, so just good. Now at level 10 here we pick up our last subclass feature, and that is Fiendish Resilience. So we get to pick something to be resistant to, and it's not only elementals. We can be resistant to bludgeoning damage, slashing damage, piercing damage. You have a lot of variety you can pick. You can pick only one of them, but you can refresh this on short rest. And this is really handy, especially at level 10 here, because, you know, you'll be coming across a lot of like psychic damage, fire damage, and on the fly between short rests, you'll be able to just switch it up and you'll only be taking half damage from those sources. This subclass feature is a great survivability tool that's also flexible. So when it comes to ranking the Fiend, I think just across the board as they level up, they just get stronger and stronger, especially with their subclass feature and their expanded spells. I think this is an A tier subclass. Really easy pick there. Easy peasy. Lemon squeezy. Let's move on. And the next Warlock subclass that is up is the Great Old One. I don't know why I do voices every now and then, but the expanded spells that they get are Dissonant Whispers and Tasha's Hideous Laughter. This is at level 1. But the main feature we should be talking about is their subclass feature, and that is Mortal Reminder. So anytime you score a critical hit, that creature and then all the creatures nearby them have to roll a wisdom saving throw. And if they fail that, they become frightened. And that is a really good subclass feature, especially since the only condition that we need to meet is a critical hit. And that is kind of really easy to do with something like Eldritch Blast. This is already really strong here at level 1. Now as far as the expanded spells that the Great Old One gets, really at level 7 here, Dominate Beast. This can be really good. And then I would say their best expanded spells come at level 9 with Dominate Person and Telekinesis. A lot of concentration coming from their expanded spells. Now at level 6 we get our next subclass feature, and that is Entropic Ward. So as a reaction when an enemy attacks us, we can impose disadvantage on that attack roll. And then if that attack misses, we have advantage on our next attack roll against the attacker. So it's kind of like the old switcheroo. I think I already made that joke earlier. Anywho, and at level 10 we get our last subclass feature for the Great Old One. We get Thought Shield, Psychic Resistance, so we are resistant to psychic damage. But then we also get Psychic Reflection, so when we do take psychic damage, the attacker is going to take that same amount of psychic damage. So we got a survivability tool here, as well as a offensive counter as well. So this is a really good subclass feature in my opinion, especially because in the case of Baldur's Gate 3, yeah, there is a lot of psychic damage that we have to deal with. So in ranking the Great Old One, I'm going to put this one also into A tier. Tempted to put it into S tier, but I think when we look at Hexblade, you'll maybe understand why. I just don't think it's on the same power level. Still extremely good, but Hexblade is just... Well, let's just go talk about Hexblade. Hexblade. Where to begin? There's so much to talk about with this subclass that just makes it kind of overpowered in some senses. So Hexblades, when you choose it, you become a Hex Warrior. You become proficient with martial weapons. You also get access to medium armor and shields. The extended spells you get, Shield and Wrathful Smite. Shield here as a spell. This is another one that's just one of the best level 1 spells in the game. We also get Bind Hex Weapon. This is kind of like us getting Pact of the Blade early on, because Pact of the Blade you pick up at level 3. Well, we get it here at level 1, meaning we're going to be using our Charisma modifier instead of Dexterity or Strength towards our weapon or martial damage. We also get Hexblade's Curse. So this is a bonus action. It comes back on short rest. We inflict this on a target and we get a bonus to our attack rolls against them. Additionally, the number we need for an attack roll is reduced by 1. And if the target dies, then we get some health back too. So just here at level 1, you look at kind of like all the features that are stacking upon one another, and you take Hexblade here and then you compare it to like any of the rogue subclasses, and I feel like if you were a rogue, you'd be sitting there just shaking your head like, God damn. Anyways, and then quickly taking a look at their expanded spell list here. Level 3 they get Blur and then Branding Smite. Those are okay, but at level 5 you get Elemental Weapon. And this is an excellent concentration spell for a martial character, so really good there. Other than that, nothing really at level 7 that I like out of this list other than greater invisibility, but level 9 we get Cone of Cold. Again, that shotgun frost damage or ice damage, really good in my opinion. Now at level 6 we get our next subclass feature and we get a Cursed Spectre. So when we defeat a target that has the Hexblade curse on them, they will rise up as this Spectre, and depending on how powerful that creature is, it's either going to be a feeble, mundane, or primordial Spectre. So it almost has like tiers depending on, again, how strong the enemy is that you killed. Now this doesn't trigger against every target, like it won't trigger against constructs, elementals, oozes, or plants, but when you do summon a Spectre buddy, oh, they are so good. So this Spectre ally that you can summon up, yeah, they're just crazy good. They're just a really good companion. And at level 10, we get our last subclass feature for the Hexblade, and that is Armor of Hexes. So when an enemy who has the Hexblade's curse, when they attack you, you can use your reaction, and it has a 50% chance of nullifying all the damage. And that there is just some good survivability. There we go again with the voices. I don't know what's wrong with me. And to no one's surprise, when it comes to ranking the Hexblade, it is going into S tier. I feel like we could have made a whole video just talking about Hexblade and all their features. Like, we didn't even go into the fact that your Spectre buddy can siphon life, and if your Hexblade is down and they siphon that life, it gets your Hexblade back up. It's just great utility and support from a companion that is not that hard to summon, essentially. But yeah, Hexblade, ooh, so dang good. It just might be the best subclass in the game. Alright y'all, that is the video. This is the updated tier list with all of the Warlock subclasses now added to it. Honestly, Archfey there, I think you can make a case for it being an A tier as well, but Warlocks in general, they're kind of stacked. Let me know what you think about the Warlock and all their subclasses, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace and take care. Welcome back to the channel, y'all. Today we are continuing with ranking all the classes and subclasses in Baldur's Gate 3, and today we're covering the Monk. Here is our current tier list, and you'll notice that everything is a little top heavy, and that's because Baldur's Gate 3 is not an overly difficult game, and the classes and subclasses were provided are all generally very strong. So that's it for the intro. Let's go ahead and get started. The first monk subclass that we're going to go over is Way of the Open Hand. Now every monk has access to Flurry of Blows at level 1, and you have to use your bonus action and your key points. Key points, this is your class resource that every monk is going to use. How they use them depends on the subclass. Now, with the Flurry of Blows here, I just want to point this out because every subclass also gets extra attack. So if you know anything about martial characters, you know that having an attack, extra attack, and a way to weaponize your bonus action, that's very powerful. Now at level 3, this is when you're going to pick up your open hand subclass here, and essentially what they get right off the bat is a way to alter those Flurry of Blows. So you get Topple here where you can knock an enemy prone, which is going to give you advantage on your follow-up attack, so that's really good. And then you also get Stagger and then your own push ability. So a little bit of variety with how you're going to be using your bonus action, and these are all good options. Our next subclass feature comes at level 6, and we get these Manifestations of Body. And this is a passive feature where you can choose one of these 3 damage types to add to your unarmed attacks. And in Baldur's Gate 3, there's already a bunch of items, especially for monks here, where it's just going to give you, a 1d6 here, 1d4 there. And this is a passive way to do it that's intrinsic to the monk here, making them one of the best martial damage dealers in the game. And then at level 9 we get our next subclass feature, which are these Resonating Punches or Resonation Punches, where essentially this is like putting a sticky bomb, or I guess like a C4, on an enemy with either your action or your bonus action, and then you can use your key point to detonate it for AoE damage. So a AoE option for a martial character, this is just great all around. At level 11, we get our last subclass feature, which is Tranquility. So after every long rest, our monks here just get Sanctuary. Sanctuary is fantastic because no enemy is going to be able to target us until we do an action. They can hit us actually with AoE damage, but this is going to give us time to get in position because we are a martial character. We like to get into, the front line. So we have that time and that benefit of Sanctuary to get wherever we need to go and just start punching. Now when ranking the open hand monk, I think this is a subclass that is firing on all cylinders, and every subclass feature is synergizing with one another. This martial character subclass, this is an S tier subclass, no question about it, one of the best in the game. And the next subclass is Way of Shadow. This is like the rogue, sneaky variant of the monk. And so we get Shadow Art's Hide, which is just using our bonus action to go into stealth, which is handy. Also, we get Pass Without Trace, which this is an excellent spell that we're getting at level 3 that only is going to cost us our key points. Pair this with like greater invisibility, and you're going to be very hard to see in combat where you can just stay invisible and keep hitting targets. Really good combination there. We also get darkness and then dark vision, so we can put up this dark bubble. But keep in mind that dark bubble is magical darkness, and dark vision is not going to help you see through that. And then we get Silence. This is a good spell. Mostly just use it in Act 1. Not as many, I would say, punchy fist attacks that the open hand has, but still, this is decent. At level 5, we get our next subclass feature, which is Cloak of Shadows. This will just make us invisible, but it doesn't cost anything except for just our action, which is a really handy way just to go invisible. And at level 6, I think this is when Way of Shadow starts getting a little bit better, and that's because they get Shadow Step here. So we're able to teleport from shadow to shadow, but once we do that teleport, our next attack roll is going to have advantage, which is great for a martial character. Now at level 11, we get our last subclass feature here, which is Shadow Strike. So we have a weapon version, and then we have an unarmed version as well. And so what this will allow us to do is teleport to a target and then add a 3d8 psychic damage to our attacks. It's going to cost us some key points, but this is a pretty cool assassination almost like ability. Really cool. Unfortunately, it does come at level 11. So Way the Shadow here is kind of like Hunter from Ranger in my opinion, where most of the game they're kind of, I would say, middle of the road, but then at level 11 here they get a huge spike in power. It just happens to be in like Act 3, so that's sort of unfortunate. Alright, so when ranking Way of Shadow, a lot of it has to do with being invisible or sneaking, being in shadow, lightly or heavily obscured spots. So if you like that stealth and that sneaking gameplay, this probably sits in like, I don't know, A-, A tier, somewhere around there. Unfortunately for me, it's not really my play style. I think I'm going to stick it in B tier because I already compared it to Hunter, where I think all the really good stuff comes, or it all comes together at level 11. And again, that's Act 3. Most of the game is already done by then, and I just think all the other subclasses, at least for me, they fare a little bit better. So I'm gonna stick it in B tier, and I'm sorry. And next monk subclass is the Way of the Four Elements, and if I ever make a Richter Belmont build, I would definitely use this subclass because it's kind of like the mage version of the monk, where they get something like Water Whip, Unbroken Air, this Fire Snake, which is just like their own elemental abilities, which are going to use their key points, where these are going to come back on short rest, but then 4 elements here, we get Harmony of Fire and Water. And this is at level 3, so a really cool spellcaster very early in the game. And as we're leveling up, level 6 here, we'll get access to more spells. I want to call them just regular spells, but they are the same thing. So we got Clinch of the North Wind here. This is the same thing as Hold Person, but it's just like the monk variant. We also have something like Scorching Rays, Burning Hands, but they have like their own monk twist on them. And also when you use these spells here, these monk spells, it's also going to trigger Unarmed Strike, so we can still use our bonus action just do like a punch to the face. So we still have that going for us as far as having our regular action to do damage, and then our bonus action being weaponized. And at level 9, we get improved elemental casting. So all of our elemental monk spells here, they're going to get an extra dice roll. So for example here, Water Whip. This was doing a 3d10 earlier, but now with improved elemental casting, it's doing a 4d10. So just more damage across the board. And lastly, at level 11, we get like our last tier of spells. In the case of what I chose, well, it's just Flame of the Phoenix, which this is Fireball. And we like Fireball around here because, you know, Fireball. Now when it comes to ranking Way of the Four Elements, a little bit of a tricky one because they have a limited like spell list, but those spells that they have, they can use really often because of key points and how easily those refresh. So you can almost like spam those low level spells, and then those will activate your bonus action to punch if you want to. But the spells you're getting as far as the list, you don't get access to some of the best spells, so a little limited there. We're kind of a hybrid class here where we have that melee side as well. Lot to consider, and this is one I'm thinking about still. I like this subclass a lot. I think I'm gonna stick it in A-, although I could be swayed to put it in A tier, but I'm just gonna keep it in A-. I like this one a lot. It's just I'm looking at everything that's in A tier. I'm like, is it as good as that? And right now I'm saying, not really. And last up, we have the monk subclass for all the party people. Everybody who likes to have a good time and maybe a little bit of an alcoholic like myself. Anywho, subclass features we get is drunken performance. Not really big deal there, but we also get cheeky tipple, which is basically we get our key points whenever we drink and become drunk with alcohol. So all those alcoholic drinks in Baldur's Gate 3 that you pick up, you're going to want to stash them up or have a nice stockpile of them. We also get drunken technique. This essentially is just going to let us disengage and get a little bit of extra movement after we do our bonus attack. This is okay. Now at level 4, we kind of get the big subclass feature of Drunken Master here. We get Intoxicating Strike. So this will make a target drunk or has a chance to, and then that's going to synergize with Life of the Party because every time Intoxicating Strike hits, we get Life of the Party. It's a buff. It's going to increase our armor class and our attack rolls against drunk targets. So for this playstyle, you really want to be spreading that drunk effect. So a lot of legwork and how much benefits you get off of basically spreading that drunk effect, kind of up to you. This is very much a, I would say like an RP subclass where it's a lot of legwork, it's a really fun theme, but the payoff, it's just decent so far. Now our next subclass feature comes at level 6 and we get leap to your feet. So it costs a certain amount of movement speed to get back up if you're knocked prone. For Drunken Master, that cost on your movement speed is going to be less. We also get redirect attack. So this is a reaction ability where the enemy who's attacking you in melee will miss and then we can punch back at them with an unarmed strike. And I think this changed from the test server because test server used to be enemy attacks you, you can then use your reaction to redirect their attack to somebody who's close by to you, which that situation really didn't come up all that often. A little more niche, I would say, where this version of it, a little more consistent, easier to proc, and it's going to be, I guess, more useful overall. And our next subclass feature we unlock at level 9, we get Sobering Realization. This is sort of like a finisher because you have to hit a drunk target and it's going to do an extra bit of psychic damage to them, but it's also going to make us lose Life of the Party. So again, that's why I would think this as a finisher. Now I didn't point out, but the drunk effect, it's really not that good for combat situations because it just gives them disadvantage on their dexterity and charisma checks. So this is almost like a nothing burger when it comes to a debuff on a target. It really just activates most of the features for the Drunken Master specifically. In our last subclass feature we pick up at level 11, we get Drunkard's Luck. So when we have an ability, an attack roll, or a saving throw, then we have disadvantage on that check or saving throw, we can spend our 2 key points and take that advantage off. It's not going to automatically succeed the check. Again, it just takes away disadvantage. And for an level 11 feature here, hi baby, hi, come say hi. Oh, can we see you? Hi, you haven't made an appearance in a while. Okay. I'll talk to you later. Goodbye. Goodbye. She usually isn't jumping in my lap when I'm making videos lately, but there you go. Yeah, we got Lady here, our dog. Anyways, this subclass feature so late in the game, level 11, really not that great. Now in ranking Drunken Master here, again, I think it has a very strong RP theme, but the whole spreading the drunk effect and then Life of the Party, I don't think is that great of a class benefit. And I struggle with this one because again, I really like the theme. I think it's a lot of fun, but the applications of it in Baldur's Gate 3, I don't think they're very good. Essentially, I think the other monks are way better, and there's a lot of other subclasses that are also just way better. I think I'm gonna stick it into C tier. That surprises me. I thought I was gonna sit in B tier, but I don't think it belongs in the same category of Way of the Shadow. If that makes any sense. So C tier it is. Alright y'all, that is our rankings of the monk subclass. You let me know where you think the monks belong. I think we did a pretty decent job. Now we only have 2 more subclasses left. We have Druid and we have Bard. I think we're just gonna knock them out back to back. Here is the updated tier list. You can see where monk is sitting. And yeah guys, that is the video. I will see you next time. Peace and take care. Welcome back to the channel, y'all. Today we're going to be ranking all the Druid subclasses. Now here is our current subclass tier list, and I'm thinking about moving 4 elements down to B tier. That is one that I caught a lot of flack for in our last ranking video, but I don't know. I really like the subclass. I will come to a conclusion on if I'm going to move it at the end of the video, but yep, let's talk about the Druid today, and then after Druid, we only have the Bard that is left, and then we will have all of the subclasses ranked, and we'll cut it up into a supercut, and that'll be a very, very long video. Anyways, let's get started. Now the first Druid subclass that is up is Circle of the Moon. Now every Druid can shapeshift, but this is the subclass that is dedicated to being the best shapeshifter. They get the action here, Lunar Mend. This is a bonus action plus using your spell slot that will heal you up while you're in your wild shape. Additionally, like I said, every Druid gets all of these wild shape forms here, but the Circle of the Moon, they get the exclusive wild shape, which is the bear, and that's kind of their thing as a subclass. Is they're going to get these different wild shape forms other than just the basic ones. Now at level 4 for Circle of the Moon, you pick up the Dire Raven as your wild shape or your exclusive wild shape, and at level 6 here you get Primal Strike, and this is going to turn your wild shape, your attacks, into magical attacks to overcome resistances and immunities. And this is great because other martial characters, they're picking up weapons that have enchantments with them, like that +1 enchantment or +2, and that makes those weapons magical. So now with the wild shapes here, your attacks are magical as well, and that does help out with resistances, because if you're ever looking at a character or an enemy and you're inspecting them and you're seeing what they are immune to or resistant to, you can tell by the little blue arrow that tells you if they're resistant to magical attacks. Most of the time it's that gray arrow, which is just physical ones that have no magical properties, and up until this point, if it had just again that gray arrow, then they would be resistant to our wild shape attacks, but now we have that magical element added to it. Now at level 8 we picked up the Saber-Tooth Tiger as a wild shape, and then at level 10 we pick up the Elemental, the Myrmidon. So you got like Earth, Fire, Water, and then Air, and these are all pretty good for a shapeshifter. So now where do we rank the Circle of the Moon Druid here? I think I'm going to put it in A-. I think this is a really good frontline character. The only drawback in my opinion is maybe they're not as powerful as something like a Berserker or like an Eldritch Knight, but they are tanky, and then you also lose the aesthetic of your character, you know, in exchange for these wild shape forms. That might not be for everybody, including myself. I'm not really the biggest shapeshifter type of guy, but these wild shape forms are really good, especially the exclusive ones. So yeah, I think it sits in A-. It's very powerful, maybe at the tippity top of A- there. So if you do like, you know, that Druid playstyle of changing into these different creatures, then maybe this could be an A tier for you, but for me, A- it is. And next up, we're going to rank the Circle of Spores Druid. Now, instead of doing all the wild shape forms, they get this symbiotic entity. So this is going to, again, replace your wild shape, and it's going to give you more temporary hit points, and then your unarmed strikes or your weapon strikes, they're going to have necrotic damage that is added to them. We also pick up Halo of Spores, and take note, it's not a action or a bonus action. This is a subclass that gets to weaponize their reaction during their turn, and that's a new unique feature here with Circle of Spores. So eventually down the line, we're going to be able to cast a spell with our action, our bonus action, and our reaction all during the same turn. Now, while we're leveling up Circle of Spores, we're also picking up subclass spells for them as well that they get intrinsically, and I'll point them out when I think they're noteworthy. Like here at level 5, we pick up Animate Dead, because it's not apparent right now, but this is a Necromancer class as well. Kind of better than the actual like wizard necromancy, and you'll see that at level 6. And that's because at level 6 we pick up Fungal Infestation, and we also get these Fungal Infestation charges, and this is going to allow us to infect or raise up another minion. So we have Animate Dead, and then we're going to also have like this Fungal Corpse as well, making us a very strong Minion Mancer here at level 6. Now at level 7 we picked up Blight, and then at level 9 we picked up Cloud Kill, but at level 10 we get Spreading Spores. This is what I was talking about earlier, where this is a bonus action that we can do damage with. So now we have an action which we can use one of our spells or cantrips, so you can use Bone Chill, then follow that up with Spreading Spores, and then cap it off with using Halo of Spores. This is with no haste, nothing like Action Surge. This is all just baked intrinsically to Halo or a Circle of Spores here, all centered around necrotic damage. And on top of that, yes, we have our minion army that you can build up with Fungal Infestation and Animate Dead. Now, where am I going to rank Circle of Spores? I think this is a subclass with a really strong identity, and it has a lot of versatility with it because it has that Minion Mancer side. It's not only focused on necrotic damage, because there are a fair amount of enemies in the game that are resistant to necrotic damage, but with your bonus action and your reaction weaponized on top of having a minion army, you do have the normal druid spells as well, so you're not just locked into necrotic damage. So again, a lot of options with this spellcaster here, and I think they're very powerful. I'm going to be sticking them into A tier. Next up, we have Circle of the Land before time. I'm a 90s kid. Anyways, subclass feature we get here at level 2, we get natural recovery. So we're going to be able to recover our spell slot with these natural recovery charges. This is always an excellent thing to have as a dedicated spellcaster, which Circle of the Land is for the druids. Now at level 3, you start to see why Circle of Land as a spellcaster is really special and really good, because they get to pick from all these different these lands here, so Arctic, or I guess terrain really, desert or ecosystems. I don't know. Either way, you get another list of spells to choose from. And just like the Cleric, our spell modifier is based off of wisdom. So we have these prepared spells here. In our normal prepared list here, we can take whatever we want off and put them back on as long as we're outside of combat. Now these environment spells, these stay on us no matter what, and we don't have to take them on and off of our bar. They just are always there. And at level 5, we get another Circle of Land spell, and I would take either Arctic or something like Grassland, because they both come with haste, and haste is one of the best, if not the best, concentration in the game. And as a spellcaster, if you have the ability to pick up haste, you pick it up, because it is just that good. Now at level 6, the subclass feature we pick up is Land Stride, difficult terrain, so we're not impeded by something like mud anymore, and this is a good subclass feature. And as you're leveling up, you're getting more Circle of Land spells, and I kind of pointed out the one that I wanted to, which is basically just Haste and Misty Step. Level 10 here, we pick up our next subclass feature, which is Nature's Ward. So we cannot be charmed or frightened by Fey or elemental enemies. There are a couple Fey enemies that will try to charm or frighten you, so this can be pretty good. And disease and poison can no longer affect us. Not so useful, I would say, in this part of the game. More useful in Act 1. There's a lot of poison and disease that you can run into there, but later in the game, not so much. Now, when ranking Circle of Land, or the land, we're in a little bit of a pickle, because I don't think it's as good as something like Evocation Wizard. We're kind of comparing it to the other spellcasters, so it doesn't belong in A tier in my opinion. I think we can stick it in A- tier, like near the top. It's either that or like the very bottom of A tier. For the sake of the list not looking so crowded, we are going to stick it in A-, because again, I can't rank it above Evocation. I think Evocation comes with some intrinsic things that just makes their spells even stronger, where Circle of the Land here just has a great pick of the litter, and they have like a few, I would say, helpful features, like not being able to get stuck on terrain or like something like mud, and then not being able to be charmed or frightened by fey creatures or elementals. That can be useful too in Baldur's Gate 3. So I think A- tier is where it's going to sit for now. A lot of A and A- rankings for the Druid here, and it's a little surprising because the Druid subclass or the Druid class kind of just, it's not really my vibe. But you know what is my vibe? Circle of the Stars. Now, why is that? Well, they get a lot of features that kind of make them this radiant spellcaster, which kind of aligns them more towards like a cleric, but with some, I would say, Druid flair. I don't know. Let's talk about the subclass features. First one is Star Map. So you essentially get to cast a Guiding Bolt for free, or using this Star Map currency instead of using a spell slot. You still get all your normal spell slots, but this is a way to just sling Guiding Bolts for another resource, which is great. We also get these starry forms. So you still get your animal forms if you want them, but as a Circle of the Stars, you're not going to be using those. You're going to be using these starry forms instead. So we got Archer, which is going to let you use like a radiant bow as a bonus action to do damage. And then you get this Chalice form, which as long as you cast a healing spell, you then get to use your bonus action to cast another healing spell. You have to do it in that order. And the last form here is Dragon. And this is really great because you have this Dazzling Breath, which is this frontal conal spell as a bonus action that does radiant damage. That's pretty decent damage. But the big ticket thing here is our concentration spells when we are rolling a saving throw. If we roll a 9 or lower, it is considered a 10 instead. This is fantastic for maintaining a concentration. And I want you to note that at level 3, we pick up Moonbeam. This makes Circle of Stars and Moonbeam like a match made in heaven, especially on like your spell economy side, because you just cast Moonbeam and then you can use your bonus action to do like Dazzling Breath or Luminous Arrow, and you're not expending any of your star map resources or your spell slots outside of that initial casting of Moonbeam. This is so strong in Act 1. It's crazy. Probably one of the best subclasses in Act 1. Holy shit, Nomad, calm down. We're only at level 2 here. You clearly love this subclass. And yes, I do. Now, at level 6 is when we get our next big subclass feature. While you're leveling up, you're going to get more starry maps to use Guiding Bolt with. But again, level 6 here, we get Cosmic Omens. And this is random if it's either going to be Weal or Woe. One will affect your allies as far as their attack rolls or their saving throws, and the other will affect enemies as far as their attack rolls or their saving throws. This is a reaction that comes with its own resource to spend, and this just makes them a more complete subclass in my opinion, because you're already doing something like Moonbeam. We could have picked up Call Lightning as well for your action. Bonus action wise, we are set with all of our starry forms, and now we have an excellent reaction that's either going to help our allies or debuff our enemies as far as their attack rolls and their saving throws. So just really excellent and well-rounded here by level 6. Now, our last subclass feature we get at level 10, and that is Twinkling Constellations. So our Archer, our Dragon, and our Chalice, they're all improved by either doing more damage or more healing. Dragon also gains the ability to fly. And then with our starry forms, we're able to change between them freely once per turn, because before it would cost a resource to change them. So overall, Twinkling Constellations, they're just making all of our starry forms even better. Now, when ranking Circle of the Stars, I have never changed my tune about this subclass as soon as I started playing with it. It is excellent. It is S tier in my opinion, weaponizing your bonus action very early on in the game, and that just gets better and better as far as your resource management, because again, you can just stick to using Moonbeam, you can upcast that, you can just keep recasting it, and then you always have something to do with your bonus action as well. This is just a spellcaster that, again, doesn't use that many resources, is extremely effective, and always has something to do with their action and their bonus action, and that rate's really high in my book. And yeah, this subclass works really well with those Radiant Orb builds. This is just another subclass that can do that, and it might do it the best because of that Dazzling Breath cone. It's just, oof, so good. Alright y'all, that's the video. That is us ranking all of the Druid subclasses. Let me know what you think about the Druid subclass. Here's the updated list. I'm not touching any of the monks yet. I'm still thinking about those, but Life Domain I am bumping up. Why am I doing that? Well, for beginners, Life Domain is absolutely crucial and extremely powerful at keeping everybody alive and healthy so you can experience the game. And I started a new campaign with two of my buddies that aren't really familiar with CRPGs or D&D kind of like this, and Life Domain has been just the absolute goat at keeping our party alive and doing a lot of the heavy lifting. So in that instance, I'm like, okay, Life Domain is a lot better than B tier. Now I understand for people who are really familiar with Baldur's Gate 3, you're not picking Life Domain because you know that you can phase out that healing in favor of damage, but for people who are new with the game, or maybe just like a dedicated healer, Life Domain, it deserves to be up a tier in my opinion. But yep, that's the video guys. I will think more about where I'm gonna, maybe alter the monk ranks, but we'll wait for that one. Next up is the Bard, and that'll be the last subclass. That'll be the last slew of subclasses that we have to rank. So look forward to it, and I'll see you then. Peace and take care. Well, it comes down to this, the last class in our ranking series for Baldur's Gate 3, and that is the Bard. Been looking forward to this one, not really, but little housekeeping before we get to the Bard, and here is the updated tier list, and you guys were absolutely right about Circle of the Moon. I let my bias get the better of me. Circle of the Moon definitely deserves to be an A tier at the very least. You get 2 health pools. It synergizes with Tavern Brawler. This could very easily be an S tier class if you're a big fan of the Druid. But definitely think it belongs side by side with something like the Eldritch Knight, the Giant Battle Master. It's definitely up there as far as an upper echelon martial character. So with that housekeeping out of the way, let's talk about the Bard. Alright, and the first Bard subclass that we're going to talk about is College of Valor. Now, every Bard gets their class resource Bardic Inspirations, and they also all get to pick up some spells. They're kind of like a hybrid class overall, and they also get an additional short rest that they can apply to the party. So really well-rounded overall. College of Valor here, they changed their Bardic Inspiration into a Combat Inspiration. So normally a Bardic Inspiration, it lets you alter attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws. But with Combat Inspiration here, it lets you change or add that dice roll, that 1d6, to weapon damage and armor class as well. Now that Combat Inspiration addition is only going to last 1 roll, meaning if you want those benefits, you're going to have to reapply Combat Inspiration over and over again. Overall, I do think this subclass feature is pretty well-rounded, pretty good. It does give you something to do with your bonus action, but how this basically translates to like the later parts in the game, I don't think it's as strong as it first seems here, especially when we start to look at the other Bard subclasses. Now at level 5 we get our next class features, and this is for every single Bard, but we're going to go through it once with College of Valor here. We get Font of Inspiration, so our Bardic Inspirations used to just come back on long rest. Well, now they come back on short rest too, and that's really good because of the additional short rest that every Bard has access to. We also get improved Bardic Inspirations here, so instead of a 1d6, it's now a 1d8, and later on this will be upgraded to a 1d10. Now I forgot to mention it in case you didn't really see there, but these Combat Inspirations, they can't apply to the Bard themselves. You have to basically, you can only dish them out to your allies, and that's a little bit of a downer because College of Valor here, it does tend to be more of a martial character, because when you pick up College of Valor, you get access to all martial weapons, you're able to use a shield, and you're medium armor proficient. But yeah, your additional weapon damage in armor class, yeah, that's reserved for your allies and not you. Now at level 6, this is when the Bard picks up their extra attack. So it is a level later than something like a fighter or Paladin. So bards overall, they're kind of slow to get going as far as their power compared to the other, I would say, really strong classes and subclasses where they usually spike pretty early on, like level 3 and then 4 or 5. But for bard here, as far as the martial side, yeah, they really don't hit their stride until level 6 here. Now at level 10, this is a huge jump in power for every bard because your bardic inspiration, this is where it gets improved to 1d10, kind of mentioned that earlier, but every single bard gets access to these magical secrets. And just looking at this spell list here, there are some real bangers. We have haste, which makes this martial character extremely powerful. We also get something like Cone of Cold, you get Hunger of Hadar, you get Call Lightning. The sheer versatility as far as your choice of spells, it's amazing. It's just really good. And it comes at level 10, so a little bit later in the game, but there's no denying how strong it is just to pick any two of these spells. So late game wise, you can see that bards are eating good with really strong magic and being a really good martial character. Now when ranking College of Valor, we kind of need to keep in mind how we ranked Fighter, where baseline fighters are all very strong just because of like what they all get intrinsically. Same here, same goes for the bard here. But as far as how the subclasses are different, I think College of Valor here is very middle of the road. But there's no denying that every bard class is one of the best characters, or I guess one of the best classes you can have as the face of the party. But you're going to see that the other bard subclasses, two of them are just so much better than this. So I think I'm going to keep it in A- tier. I could slip it down to B tier. I don't know. This one is very tough for me to rank overall. Probably the most difficult one. The other ones I have my mind pretty much set on. But this one I'm like A-, B tier. And I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to stick it in A- tier. And let's move on. And next up is College of Swords. This is why I want to start with Valor first. Because you're going to see that Swords is just so much better. It's going to blow it out of the water. First up, you get to pick a fighting style. The go-to is 2-weapon fighting. I think everybody would go with that. But you also get these subclass feature here. You get these flourishes, and then you get these melee ones, and they're pretty decent. But the real winners here is actually the real winner is just slashing flourish range. So you pick up 2 hand crossbows, and you can target the same enemy twice with one action. This is a bug. You're supposed to only be able to target 2 different targets, but nope, you can double up on one enemy and just absolutely just delete them from the battle. This is extremely powerful if you build your swords bard here into a martial range weapon. So again, hand crossbows or bow and arrow, and this is unmatched as far as like damage in that field. And the last subclass feature for College of Swords comes at level 6, and that is just getting extra attack like College of Valor. And yeah, that's it for College of Swords. Now of course they also get magical secrets and the things we talked about during the College of Valor section. So couple all that together, and yeah, what do you get? Let's see. I'll tell you what you get. You get a subclass that is ranked as an S+ tier subclass. It is just that good. You have those slashing flourishes, you pick up the feat sharpshooter, eventually you're going to get your extra attack at level 6, you have haste later on, and you're an absolute monster on the battlefield. And with all the benefits of just being a bard just in general, so you know, that extra short rest, charisma base, face of the party, College of Swords is broken. It is so good. It opens up the door to that S+ tier, because now that this is the last subclass that we're covering, we will at the end move some other subclasses up to S+ tier as well. I kind of want to see how the list would shake out overall, but now College of Swords here, this is the first one that I'm very comfortable saying, yeah, that's S+ tier. No doubt about it. I don't like bards, but I can understand how strong this subclass is, and we're not considering even multiclassing. We're just talking about base value. Just oof, it's broken, but in a good way. Stupid bards. Next up is College of Lore, and it has a very simple but really effective mechanic, and that is cutting words here. So we use our bardic inspiration to impose a penalty on the enemy's attack rolls or their saving throws, and we get to use this as a reaction. This may not seem like it's that good, but this is insanely powerful for a spellcaster, which College of Lore here leans into instead of being a martial character like Valor and Swords. No, they're an amazing spellcaster. Now at level 6, College of Lore, they get access to magical secrets early, and they're capped off at the level 3 spells, but the level 3 spells are some of the best spells in the game. So we have like Fireball, Call Lightning, Lightning Bolt, Haste, Hunger of Hadar, a lot of good choices. Now with Cutting Words, if we're using something like Fireball on a target, they roll a saving throw. If they succeed that saving throw, Fireball's only going to do half damage. But with Cutting Words, it's your reaction, and it's also a Bardic Inspiration. You're almost guaranteeing that they're going to fail that saving throw roll, meaning all these spells that are like this are going to succeed and do full damage. Same goes for control spells. So something like Command, Hold Person, Hold Monster, you're going to succeed those in controlling whatever your target is. This is very powerful against bosses. And because you're only using your reaction and your Bardic Inspirations, you can do this basically every time, because at this point, your Bardic Inspirations, they come back on short rest. This is insanely powerful as a spellcaster, and I hope you all realize that. I think you could make a case for lore here also being S+, but we're just going to stick it in S tier. I don't want the bards to think I'm getting all cozy with them. Stupid bards. Finally, I get to talk shit about the bards, because now is the College of Glamour, the latest addition to Baldur's Gate 3. In College of Glamour here, their subclass feature is Mantle of Inspiration. They're using their Bardic Inspiration, and you give 2 allies, this will scale up later on, but you give 2 allies some temporary hit points, and then if they get hit with melee specifically, you will then charm that attacker. This is just kind of very underwhelming. Temporary hit points, in my opinion, not very hard to come by. You have stuff like Aid, False Life, and there are going to be things that are later on that you get that are just, I think just better. And for it to be designated to a subclass feature, not going to cut it in my book, Glamour. No siree. Now at level 6, the College of Glamour, they get their next subclass feature, and they get Mantle of Majesty Command. So this will give you the command ability, and you get to cast it basically for free for 10 turns. And if that enemy that you're casting command on is charmed, they're automatically going to fail their saving throw, and then command will go through. Command is one of the best spells in the game, and College of Glamour here gets to use it as a bonus action for 1 fight between long rest. That is just kind of very underwhelming. Again, as a subclass feature, because we already have command as a spell. And this, again, being between long rests is just, what do you do with it? What do you do with it? I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Now at level 10, their Mantle of Majesty, you can cast it on everybody in your party, 4 targets, and it's gonna give them all 11 temporary hit points, so 44 hit points overall. This is a good support ability, but how much value you're putting in 11 temporary hit points this late in the game, I don't know, man. I don't know. Actually, I do know. I don't know what I'm saying. Put it this way: if College of Glamour wasn't attached to Bard, this would be one of the, I would say, probably most underwhelming subclasses in general. Very low on my list. I'm sticking them in C tier. If I had a buddy and I was playing with them and they're like, I'm gonna go College of Glamour, I would immediately ask, why? Why are you doing that? Why wouldn't you go with one of the other Bard subclasses? And that's kind of the same way that I feel about Champion for Fighter. If somebody goes Fighter and they say they're going Champion, I go, explain that one to me, Chief, because have you seen the other fighters? They're pretty good. So that's where College of Glamour is going, and that's where they're staying. Alright y'all, that is all the subclasses ranked. This is the final list right here, and we went ahead and promoted some of my, I guess, more favorite subclasses to that S+ tier that I think deserve it. Arcane Archer, of course, and Storm Sorcery. I think you could swap out Draconic, or you could throw Draconic probably up there in S+ tier, but I don't want to crowd it too much. Very opinion based for those S+ choices, except for College of Swords. I think that's just undeniably that powerful. Now, just as a final recap on this list, all these subclasses are being judged on their own. We're not talking about multi-classing. So that's why something like Thief sitting very low. If we did weigh in multi-classing, this list would look pretty different overall, but that would take just as much time to flesh out. So we stuck to just the pure class as far as it performs in Baldur's Gate 3. And I didn't mention at the beginning, but I did promote Gloomstalker as well. I don't know what I was thinking. Well, you know what I was thinking? It was Ranger was one of the first classes we did, so I was very conservative because I didn't really know where everything was going to fall into place. But now that I've seen kind of like A was looking very crowded, I'm thinking Gloomstalker definitely deserves to be an S tier because it is just that good throughout the game. But anyways, y'all, that is the series done. We will have a supercut eventually of all the videos strung together. This was a long one, so if you've been here since the beginning, thank you very much, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace and take care.